Hello there, and welcome to Midnight Wanderer. Have you ever stopped to consider the quiet, immense universe that exists within your own skin? We spend our lives looking out at the stars, searching for wonder in the vastness of space, but perhaps the most profound cosmos of all is the one that you carry with you in every single moment. It is a universe of trillions of living cells, of silent rivers and electrical whispers, all working in a perfect unspoken harmony that allows you to simply be. Tonight, there is nothing for you to solve, nothing to figure out. I invite you to simply drift with me on a gentle tour of this inner world. We will wander through its landscapes without any expectation, simply observing the quiet beauty of its design. So find a comfortable position now, nestled in your bed, and allow the weight of your body to feel heavy and supported. You have permission to let go. You have permission to release the day. Your only task now is to listen, and to allow the sound of my voice to be a soft blanket for your mind. Before our journey begins, I'd love to know where you're settling in from tonight. Feel free to share your little corner of the world in the comments below. It's a lovely way to feel connected to all the other quiet souls listening along. And if you find a sense of peace in these explorations, a gentle like or subscription helps others who are searching for a calm refuge to find their way here. And now, let us begin. Our journey into the universe within begins at the smallest possible scale with a single, humble point of life. We are about to enter the foundational unit of your being, the architect and the citizen of your entire body, the living cell. Imagine, if you will, that your body is a vast and peaceful kingdom, a continent of soft tissues and flowing rivers, and this kingdom is made up of trillions of individual bustling cities. Each one of these cities is a single cell, a self-contained world teeming with life and purpose. As we drift closer to one of these microscopic metropolises, we see that it has a border, a soft, shimmering boundary that separates its inner world from the space beyond. This is the cell membrane, the city's gentle gatekeeper, which we will visit later on our tour. Inside, the landscape is not empty. It is filled with a clear, jelly-like substance called cytoplasm, which is like the very air and ground of the city itself. It holds everything in place, providing a medium through which all the city's inhabitants can travel and interact. Suspended in this cytoplasm are countless tiny structures, each with a specific and vital job to do. These are the cell's organelles, and they are like the buildings, power plants, and factories of this microscopic city. Some are long, winding roadways, a network of channels called the endoplasmic reticulum, where proteins and other molecules are built and packaged. It's like a vast, silent workshop and delivery system, ensuring every part of the city gets what it needs. Others are small, round vesicles like little cargo trucks, moving supplies from one location to another in a constant, quiet flow of traffic. There are also the lysosomes, the city's recycling centres, which gently break down old, worn-out parts into reusable materials. Nothing is wasted here. Everything is part of a perfect, sustainable cycle. This city doesn't sleep. It works around the clock in a state of calm, focused purpose. It communicates with its neighbouring cities, sending and receiving messages to coordinate their efforts. It draws in nutrients from the bloodstream, the great river that flows past its borders, and it releases its own products back into that river to be used elsewhere in the kingdom. The sheer complexity of it all, happening on a scale too small for the naked eye to see, is a quiet miracle. It is a world of immense order and cooperation, a place where trillions of individual lives work together to create the single, unified being that is you. And as you breathe in and out, just imagine these countless cities humming with a gentle, productive energy, all dedicated to the simple, profound task of keeping you alive. This is where your story begins, not in a grand, sweeping gesture, but in the humble, perfect world of a single cell. From this single city, we will now travel to its most important and central structure, the one that holds the master plan for the entire kingdom. At the very heart of this cellular city, there is a large spherical building that stands apart from all the others. It is a place of profound quiet and importance. This is the nucleus, and if the cell is a city, then the nucleus is its central library and town hall combined. It is enclosed by its own double membrane, a porous envelope that allows specific messages to pass in and out, like a watchful librarian guarding the entrance to a rare and sacred collection of books. Inside this peaceful sanctuary, bathed in the soft light of cellular energy, lies the most precious treasure in the entire kingdom of the body, the DNA. Your deoxyribonucleic acid is not just a single book, it is a vast, sprawling library of instruction manuals. Imagine long, impossibly thin threads of spun glass, coiled and wound with breathtaking precision into structures called chromosomes. These are the books, and the writing within them is a simple alphabet of just 4 letters, A, T, C, and G, which are arranged in a specific sequence that spells out the instructions for everything your body is and does. This genetic code is the master blueprint for your entire being. It dictates the colour of your eyes, the texture of your hair, and the way your heart beats. It tells each cell whether it is to become a skin cell, a muscle cell, or a neuron. The nucleus doesn't shout these orders. Instead, when a specific instruction is needed, a little copy of a single page, a gene, is made. This copy, called messenger RNA, is like a handwritten note from the librarian. This note is then sent out from the quiet of the nucleus into the bustling cytoplasm of the city, where the workshops and factories read the instructions and build the exact protein or molecule required. The nucleus, therefore, is the calm, steady centre from which all order flows. It doesn't perform the frantic work of the city. It provides the timeless wisdom that guides it. It holds the memory of generations, the architectural plan passed down through your ancestors, all carefully preserved in its silent, protected chambers. It is the reason a liver cell knows how to be a liver cell, and a heart cell knows how to beat. It is the source of identity for every part of your body. As we float here, outside this central library, we can feel the profound sense of stability and intelligence it brings to the entire cell, a silent anchor in a world of constant activity. Now that we have seen the library of instructions within the nucleus, we must ask a simple question. Where does the cell get the energy to read these blueprints and carry out their complex tasks? The answer lies scattered throughout the cellular city, in hundreds or even thousands of small oval-shaped structures. These are the mitochondria, and they are the cell's gentle and efficient power plants. It is easy to imagine a power plant as a place of fire and smoke, of loud, churning engines. But the mitochondria are nothing like that. They are places of profound quiet and elegance. Imagine a small, smooth bean, and inside that bean, another intricately folded membrane, like a soft, continuous ribbon tucked neatly inside. It is on the surface of these inner folds that the real magic happens. These power plants do not burn fuel in a violent explosion. Instead, they perform a slow, controlled release of energy through a process called cellular respiration. They take in the simple sugar molecules, glucose, that have been delivered to the cell by the bloodstream, along with the oxygen that you have just breathed in. In a series of calm, complex chemical reactions, the mitochondria gently break down these molecules. The process is less like a fire and more like a glowing ember, releasing energy not in a burst of heat, but in the form of a tiny universal energy currency called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. Think of ATP as a fleet of tiny, fully charged batteries. Each molecule of ATP is a small, portable packet of energy, ready to be used anywhere in the cell at a moment's notice. When a muscle needs to contract, it uses ATP. When the cell needs to build a new protein or transport materials through its membrane, it spends a little of its ATP currency. These power plants are constantly, silently recharging these batteries, ensuring that the city never runs out of the energy it needs to function, to repair itself, and even to create new cells. What is truly wondrous is the ancient origin of these structures. It is believed that billions of years ago, mitochondria were once separate, independent bacteria that were enveloped by a larger cell. They formed a symbiotic relationship, a partnership that has lasted to this day. These tiny power plants even have their own small loop of DNA, a faint echo of their former independence. So, as you rest, feel the quiet, steady hum of these trillions of ancient partners working within your cells. They are the silent, gentle engines that transform the food you eat and the air you breathe into the very energy of life, powering every dream and every peaceful heartbeat. We now drift to the very edge of our cellular city, to the structure that defines its existence and protects its inner peace. This is the cell membrane. It is not a rigid wall or a static barrier. It is a soft, fluid, and incredibly intelligent boundary. The best way to imagine it is as a delicate, shimmering soap bubble made of 2 layers of fat molecules called lipids. This lipid bilayer is so flexible that it can bend and flow, sealing itself if ever breached. Embedded within this soft, oily film are various larger molecules, primarily proteins. These proteins are not just decorations. They are the functional gates, sensors, and communication towers of the city. Think of the membrane as the city's border patrol and customs agency all in one. Some of these proteins form tiny channels or tunnels that can open and close, allowing only specific ions like sodium or potassium to pass through at the right moment. This is crucial for nerve signals and muscle contractions. Other proteins are like highly specific doorways that only recognize a particular molecule, such as a sugar molecule, and will gently shuttle it from the outside to the inside. They are the city's official importers, ensuring that only needed supplies are brought in. Still, other proteins are like antennas sticking out from the surface of the cell. They are receptors, and they are designed to catch specific chemical messages, like hormones, that are floating by in the bloodstream. When one of these messages docks with its receptor, it triggers a change inside the cell, as if a courier has just delivered an important instruction from the kingdom's central command. This membrane is what allows the inside of the cell to be a completely different world from the outside. It maintains a delicate balance of chemicals and charge, a state of perfect internal harmony known as homeostasis. It is constantly vigilant, sensing its environment, communicating with its neighbours, and making countless tiny decisions every second. It is the cell's skin, its senses, and its shield. As you lie here, feel the comforting thought of this gentle, intelligent boundary surrounding every one of your trillions of cells, keeping the chaos of the outside world at bay and maintaining the sacred, peaceful space within. We have explored the life of a single cell, its library, its power plants, its protective border. But the story of the body is not static. It is one of constant growth, healing, and renewal. And for this to happen, cells must have the remarkable ability to create perfect copies of themselves. This process, called mitosis, is one of the most elegant and precisely choreographed events in all of nature. It is not a mechanical process, but a silent, graceful dance of creation. The dance begins in the quiet of the nucleus. The first signal is given, and the cell begins to prepare. The long, tangled threads of DNA in the library must be copied perfectly. Imagine each book in the library being opened, and a scribe meticulously transcribing every single letter onto a new scroll. This process, called DNA replication, ensures that the new cell will have a complete and identical set of blueprints. Once the DNA is copied, the thin threads condense, coiling up tightly into the thick X-shaped chromosomes we often see in diagrams. Each half of the X is an identical copy, held together at the centre. Now the dance truly begins. The membrane of the nucleus, the library's walls, dissolves away, freeing the chromosomes to move into the main space of the cell. From opposite poles of the cell, tiny fibres, like shimmering strands of a spider's web, begin to grow out. These are the spindle fibres. They reach toward the chromosomes, attaching to the centre of each X. This first phase is called prophase. The next movement is one of perfect alignment. The spindle fibres gently tug and pull the chromosomes until they are all lined up in a single, perfect row right across the very equator of the cell. This is metaphase. It is a moment of beautiful, fleeting symmetry, as if the dancers have all paused in a perfect formation before the next step. Then comes the separation. In a moment of silent, coordinated action, the 2 identical halves of each chromosome are pulled apart. The spindle fibres shorten, drawing one complete set of genetic instructions toward one side of the cell and the other identical set toward the opposite side. This is anaphase. It is a gentle, inexorable parting, ensuring that each new cell will have a full and complete library of its own. Finally, in the last phase, telophase, the process reverses. As the 2 complete sets of chromosomes arrive at their opposite poles, a new nuclear membrane begins to form around each set, creating 2 new, identical libraries. The chromosomes themselves begin to uncoil, relaxing back into their long, thread-like form. At the same time, the cell membrane begins to pinch inward at the centre. The cytoplasm divides, and the city gently separates into 2. Where there was once one, there are now 2 perfect daughter cells, each a mirror image of the other, each with its own complete set of instructions and machinery, ready to begin its own life. This silent symphony is happening within you right now, replacing old skin cells, healing a small cut, and renewing the lining of your stomach. It is the body's quiet, constant promise of continuation. After witnessing the beautiful dance of mitosis, where one cell becomes two identical twins, a fascinating question arises. If every cell in your body started from a single, fertilized egg and contains the exact same library of DNA, how is it that you have so many different types of cells? How does a nerve cell become so different from a skin cell or a muscle cell from a bone cell? The answer lies in a wondrous process called cell differentiation, and it is like watching the citizens of a new city choose their unique professions. Imagine that every cell, in its earliest stage, is a stem cell. A stem cell is like a young graduate, holding a library card that gives it access to every single book of instruction in the nucleus. It has the potential to become anything, however it cannot remain a generalist forever. To build a complex and functional kingdom, the citizens must specialize. The process of differentiation is guided by a series of subtle signals and chemical whispers from the cell's environment and its neighbours. It's as if the young cell receives a special calling. A cell destined to become a muscle cell will receive signals that tell it to open the books in its DNA library that relate to contraction, the genes for actin and myosin, while keeping all the other books, like the ones for producing digestive enzymes or sending nerve signals, closed and unread. It doesn't lose the other books, it simply chooses to focus on a specific chapter. Once it reads these specific genes, it begins to build the proteins and structures that define its new role. The muscle cell becomes long and fibrous, packed with the sliding filaments that allow it to contract. A nerve cell, on the other hand, will read a different chapter. It will grow long, thin extensions called axons and dendrites, specializing in sending and receiving electrical signals. A red blood cell will take the most dramatic step of all. In its final stages of specialization, it will eject its own nucleus, its library, to make more room for hemoglobin, the molecule that carries oxygen. It becomes a selfless courier with a single, vital mission. This process is a one-way journey. Once a cell has differentiated, once it has chosen its profession, it generally cannot go back. A skin cell will only ever produce more skin cells. A liver cell will only ever produce more liver cells. This creates the stability and order that the body needs. It is a testament to the incredible intelligence woven into our biology, a system that allows for the creation of immense complexity and diversity, all from a single shared blueprint. And so, the trillions of cells in your body are not a homogeneous crowd, but a society of dedicated specialists, each performing its role in quiet harmony to create the whole, wonderful being that is you, resting here, now. From the microscopic world of the individual cell, our gentle journey now zooms outward. We arrive at a grander structure, the silent and steadfast framework that gives your body its shape and strength. We're here to explore the quiet majesty of the skeletal system. When we think of a skeleton, we often picture something dry, brittle, and lifeless, a static relic in a museum. But the skeleton within you is profoundly alive. It is a dynamic, ever-changing organ system, a true living scaffolding. Imagine a great building framework, but one that is not made of cold, dead steel. Instead, it is made of a material that can grow, heal itself, and adapt to the stresses placed upon it. This is the nature of your bones. Your bones are a type of connective tissue, a complex matrix of minerals and proteins. The primary mineral is calcium phosphate, which gives the bone its incredible hardness and rigidity. It's like the hard aggregate in concrete, but without reinforcement, concrete is brittle. The reinforcement in your bones comes from a flexible protein called collagen. Think of collagen as the strong, pliable steel bars woven through the concrete. This beautiful combination of a hard mineral and a flexible protein is what makes bone both incredibly strong and resilient, able to withstand immense pressure without shattering. Woven throughout this hard matrix is a network of living cells. There are the osteoblasts, which are like the body's dedicated construction workers. They're responsible for building new bone tissue, secreting the collagen and minerals that form the matrix. Then there are the osteoclasts, which are like a demolition and recycling crew. Their job is to break down old or damaged bone, clearing the way for the osteoblast to build anew. Finally, there are the osteocytes, which are mature bone cells that have become embedded within the matrix. They are like the site foreman, monitoring the stress and health of the bone and communicating with the other cells to direct repairs and remodeling. This constant interplay between building up and breaking down means that your skeleton is never the same from one moment to the next. It is constantly being renewed. It is estimated that you have an entirely new skeleton roughly every 10 years. This living quality is why a broken bone can heal, with the cells working tirelessly to knit the two broken ends back together, often making the healed area even stronger than before. So, as you rest, let go of the image of a static skeleton. Instead, feel the quiet, living presence of this framework within you, a strong, adaptable and self-healing structure that provides the silent support for everything else your body does. It is the steady foundation upon which the miracle of you is built. Having come to appreciate the living nature of the bone matrix itself, we now venture deeper, past the hard, compact outer layer into the very heart of the bone. In the hollowed-out cavities of your larger bones, like the femur in your thigh or the bones of your pelvis, lies a soft, spongy and incredibly vital substance. This is the bone marrow, and it is one of the body's most hidden and productive gardens. There are two types of marrow, yellow and red. The yellow marrow is mostly composed of fat cells and acts as an energy reserve. But it is the red marrow that holds the true wonder. Red bone marrow is the birthplace of your blood. It is here, in this protected internal sanctuary, that the hematopoietic stem cells reside. These are the master progenitor cells for every single type of blood cell in your body. Imagine a quiet, sacred nursery, where the seeds of life are carefully tended. These stem cells are the seeds. Through a process of division and differentiation, much like the one we saw with other cells, they give rise to all the different bloodlines. A signal is given, a chemical whisper, and one of these stem cells will begin a journey. It might be instructed to become an erythrocyte, a red blood cell. It will begin producing vast quantities of hemoglobin, and in its final act of specialization, it will shed its nucleus before being released into the bloodstream, a perfect little vessel for carrying oxygen. Another stem cell might receive a different calling. It might be destined to become a warrior of the immune system, a leukocyte or white blood cell. It could differentiate into a neutrophil to fight bacteria, a lymphocyte to create antibodies, or a macrophage to clear away cellular debris. The marrow is the body's primary barracks, producing the millions of soldiers needed for your internal army every single day. Yet another stem cell will differentiate into megakaryocytes, giant cells that remain within the marrow. These large cells then shed tiny fragments of their cytoplasm into the bloodstream. These fragments are the platelets, the tiny first responders essential for blood clotting and wound healing. Every single second, your red bone marrow is producing millions of new blood cells. It is a factory of life, working silently and ceaselessly deep within the fortress of your bones. It is a beautiful example of the body's integration. The skeletal system, which provides structure and form, also serves as the ultimate protective cradle for the production of the circulatory and immune systems. As you lie here, resting peacefully, be aware of this hidden, vital process. Deep within you, in the quiet darkness of your bones, a life-giving river is being born, ensuring that every part of your body receives the oxygen, nutrients, and protection it needs to thrive. A framework, no matter how strong, is useless without the ability to move. The silent grace of the human body is made possible not just by the strength of its bones, but by the incredible engineering of the places where they meet. These connections are our joints, and they are the articulating points that allow for the beautiful, fluid dance of motion. There are several types of joints in the body, each designed for a specific purpose. Some, like the sutures in your skull, are fixed and immovable, their job being to fuse bones together for maximum protection. But most of the joints we think of are synovial joints, and they are marvels of biological design. Imagine two bone ends, each capped with a layer of smooth, glassy material. This is the articular cartilage, which we will explore next. Enclosing these bone ends is a tough, fibrous capsule, like a strong, flexible sleeve. This capsule creates a sealed space, the joint cavity. The inner lining of this capsule, the synovial membrane, produces a special fluid. This is synovial fluid, and it is like the body's own perfect lubricant. It is a clear, viscous fluid that fills the joint cavity, reducing friction to an almost unbelievable degree. The smoothness of cartilage combined with this lubricating fluid means that your joints can move with more ease and less friction than ice gliding on ice. The design of the joint determines its range of motion. Think of the hinge joint in your knee or elbow, allowing for movement in one direction, like opening and closing a door. Then consider the ball and socket joint of your shoulder or hip. Here, the rounded end of one bone fits into a cup-like depression in another, allowing for a wide, sweeping range of motion, forward, backward, sideways, and in rotation. These joints give us our freedom to reach, to walk, to turn. The wrists and ankles have gliding joints, where flat bone surfaces slide past one another, providing fine, subtle movements. Each joint is a masterpiece of mechanical engineering, perfectly suited to its task, allowing for a lifetime of silent, effortless movement. We have mentioned the smooth, glassy caps on the ends of our bones within the joints. This remarkable tissue is cartilage, and it is the body's silent, humble hero. It is a firm, flexible, connective tissue that plays a crucial role in our ability to move comfortably and without pain. Unlike bone, cartilage contains no blood vessels or nerves, which is why a cartilage injury can be so slow to heal, but it's also why our joint movements are typically sensation-free. Think of cartilage as the body's most perfect cushioning. Its structure is a dense matrix of collagen and other protein fibers, all embedded in a firm gel-like substance. This structure gives it a unique quality. It is both incredibly smooth and highly resilient. The surface of articular cartilage is one of the smoothest substances known to science, allowing the bones in our joints to glide past one another with almost no friction. But its other great gift is its ability to absorb shock. The cartilage is also rich in water, which is drawn into the matrix like a sponge. When you take a step, the pressure on your knee joint squeezes the cartilage, pushing some of the water out. This action absorbs the impact, much like a hydraulic shock absorber on a car. Then, when the pressure is released, the cartilage's sponge-like properties draw the water back in, ready for the next impact. This happens with every step you take, with every jump, with every movement, millions of times over your life. It is the silent, tireless work of this cushioning tissue that protects your bones from grinding against each other. Cartilage is found in other places in the body as well. The flexible structure of your outer ears and the tip of your nose is made of cartilage. The strong C-shaped rings that hold your windpipe open are made of cartilage, ensuring the airway never collapses. The soft cushioning discs between the vertebrae of your spine are made of cartilage, providing flexibility and shock absorption for your entire back. It is a quiet, unassuming tissue, but without its smooth, resilient presence, fluid motion would be impossible. It is the gentle protector that lines our joints and ensures a lifetime of peaceful, silent movement. At the very core of our skeletal framework stands a structure of profound strength and elegance, the vertebral column or the spine. It is so much more than a simple stack of bones. It is the central pillar of our entire being, a marvel of engineering that is both incredibly strong and beautifully flexible. Imagine a tower made not of single solid block, but of 33 individual, intricately shaped bones called vertebrae. This segmented design is the key to its genius. Between each vertebra lies one of the soft, cartilaginous discs we just discussed, which act as cushions and allow for subtle movements. This is what lets us bend, twist, and turn. The vertebrae themselves are not simple donuts of bone. They have a solid, weight-bearing body at the front and a complex arch of bone at the back. When they are all stacked together, these arches form a continuous hollow canal that runs the entire length of the spine. This is the spinal canal, and it serves as a protective, bony fortress for the most delicate and important communication highway in the body, the spinal cord. The spine, therefore, has two profound duties. The first is structural. It holds our head high, it anchors our ribs and pelvis, and it transfers the weight of our upper body to our legs. It is the central pillar that allows us to stand tall. Its second duty is protective. It is the faithful guardian of the spinal cord, the great river of nerve signals flowing from the brain to the rest of the body. Nerves branch out from the spinal cord through small openings between the vertebrae, carrying messages to our limbs and organs. Without the spine's protection, this vital connection would be impossibly vulnerable. The spine is not perfectly straight. It has a series of gentle, graceful curves. A forward curve in the neck and lower back, and a backward curve in the upper back. These curves are not a design flaw, they are essential. They act like a gentle spring, helping to absorb shock, maintain balance, and distribute our weight evenly. As you lie here, perhaps you can feel the subtle curves of your own spine against the surface you are resting on. Feel its strength and its willingness to let go, the central pillar of your physical self, resting in quiet stillness. Extending from the upper part of our spinal pillar is another beautiful and essential structure, the rib cage. It is a light, flexible, and surprisingly strong framework that serves as a gentle, protective embrace for the most vital and delicate organs in our body. Typically, we have 12 pairs of ribs. Each pair arches around from a vertebra in the thoracic spine toward the front of the body. At the front, most of the ribs connect to the sternum or breastbone via a short strip of flexible cartilage. This use of cartilage at the front is a key design feature. It gives the rib cage a remarkable degree of flexibility. Think of the rib cage not as a rigid, solid box, but as a gentle bellows. With every breath you take, muscles between the ribs, called the intercostal muscles, contract. This action lifts the rib cage up and out, expanding the volume of the chest cavity. This expansion is what draws air into your lungs, and when you breathe out, the muscles relax and the cage settles back down, gently pushing the air out. Your rib cage is in a constant, rhythmic and peaceful motion, rising and falling with the tide of your breath, but its primary purpose is protection. Nestled safely inside this bony cage are your heart and your lungs. These organs are soft, vulnerable, and absolutely essential for life. The ribs form a shield, guarding them against impacts from the outside world. The cage also provides protection for the upper parts of the liver and kidneys, so as you lie here, feel the gentle movement of your own rib cage. With each slow, deep breath, feel it expand softly, creating space, and with each exhale, feel it release. It is your body's own built-in cradle, a structure that is simultaneously strong and yielding, protective and dynamic. It is the guardian of your heartbeat and your breath, the bony embrace that holds the very essence of your life safely within. We end our exploration of the silent framework by returning to the idea that began our chapter. The skeleton is alive. This is most beautifully demonstrated by the continuous, lifelong process of bone remodeling. Your bones are not static structures that are built once and then left alone. They are in a constant, quiet state of flux, being broken down and rebuilt in a perfect balancing act. This process is carried out by the two types of cells we met earlier, the osteoclasts, the demolition crew, and the osteoblasts, the construction crew. At any given moment on the surfaces of your bones, tiny teams of osteoclasts are at work. They are gently dissolving small microscopic patches of old or stressed bone tissue, creating tiny cavities. This is called resorption. Following closely behind them are the teams of osteoblasts. They move into the small pits created by the osteoclasts and begin their work of construction. They lay down a new layer of flexible collagen protein, and then cause the hard calcium phosphate minerals to crystallize around it, forming a new patch of fresh, strong bone. This is called ossification. This cycle happens all over your body all the time. It is not a random process. It is intelligently guided by the forces on your body. Bones that are under more stress, for example in the legs of a runner, will signal for more osteoblast activity, becoming thicker and stronger to meet the demand. This is Wolff's law. Bone grows and remodels in response to the forces that are placed upon it. Conversely, bones that are not used as much will signal for less rebuilding, which is why astronauts in zero gravity can lose bone density. This remodeling process is also how your body regulates the level of calcium in your blood. Calcium is vital for nerve function and muscle contraction. If your blood calcium levels drop, your body will instruct the osteoclast to break down a little bit of bone to release calcium back into the bloodstream. If you have excess calcium, it will be stored away by the osteoblasts in the bone matrix. Your skeleton acts as a vast, stable bank account for this essential mineral. This constant, invisible work is the ultimate expression of the body's wisdom. It is a process of perpetual renewal, ensuring that your framework is always as strong, healthy, and perfectly adapted as it can be. It is a quiet promise that your body is always, in every moment, working to heal and sustain itself. Having explored the silent, living frame of the skeleton, we now dress that framework with the tissues that bring it to life. we turn our attention to the elegant and powerful network of fibres that produce every movement, from the grandest gesture to the most subtle internal rhythm, the muscular system. The muscular system is not one single entity, but rather a diverse collection of tissues, which can be thought of as three distinct families, each with its own appearance, location, and personality. Though they are different, they work together in perfect harmony to power the kingdom of the body. The first and most familiar family is the skeletal muscle. These are the muscles that attach to your bones via strong fibrous cords called tendons. If you look at skeletal muscle under a microscope, you would see that it has a striped or striated appearance, a pattern created by the highly organised arrangement of its protein fibres. Skeletal muscles are the engines of voluntary movement. Every time you consciously decide to walk, to reach for something, to smile, or even to shift your position as you get comfortable, you're using your skeletal muscles. They are the family that responds to your direct commands, the powerful workforce that moves your skeleton through the world. There are over 600 skeletal muscles in your body, ranging from the large, powerful gluteus maximus to the tiny, delicate muscles that control the movement of your eyes. The second family is the smooth muscle. This muscle type is found in the walls of your hollow internal organs, such as the stomach, the intestines, the bladder, and the blood vessels. Under a microscope, it lacks the striped appearance of skeletal muscle, which is why it is called smooth. The personality of this family is very different. Smooth muscle is involuntary. It works silently and automatically without any conscious thought from you. It is the gentle, rhythmic contractions of the smooth muscle in your digestive tract that move food along its journey. It is the smooth muscle in the walls of your arteries that helps regulate your blood pressure. This family is the quiet, tireless caretaker of your internal world, ensuring all the background processes run smoothly. The third and most unique family is the cardiac muscle. This special tissue is found in only one place in the entire body, the heart. Like skeletal muscle, it is striated, showing its power, but like smooth muscle, it is involuntary. You do not have to tell your heart to beat. Cardiac muscle has a remarkable property called autorhythmicity. It can generate its own electrical impulses and contract with its own intrinsic rhythm. It is a muscle designed for endurance, destined to beat continuously for a lifetime. These three families, the powerful volunteer, the silent caretaker, and the faithful drummer, together create the symphony of motion that is life. The ability of a muscle to create movement is one of the most fundamental processes of life. Yet the mechanism behind it is a thing of microscopic beauty and elegance. It is not an explosion of energy, but a quiet, coordinated whisper of millions of tiny fibres working in unison. To understand it, we must journey deep inside a single skeletal muscle cell, also known as a muscle fibre. Inside this long cylindrical cell, the landscape is dominated by even smaller fibres called myofibrils. Each myofibril is like a long, delicate rope, and it is here that the secret of contraction lies. The myofibril itself is composed of even tinier threads of protein, arranged in a repeating, overlapping pattern. These are the muscofilaments. There are two main types: the thin filaments, made primarily of a protein called actin, and the thick filaments, made of a protein called myosin. Imagine two combs with very fine teeth, placed so that their teeth are interlocked but not quite touching. The thin actin filaments are like one comb, and the thick myosin filaments are like the other. The myosin filaments have tiny little heads that stick out, like little arms reaching toward the actin. When the muscle is at rest, these arms are ready, but they aren't quite touching the actin. The whole process begins with a command, a gentle spark of an electrical signal that travels from a nerve to the muscle fibre. This signal is the starting pistol. It causes the muscle cell to release a flood of calcium ions, which have been patiently stored away. The calcium is like a key. It binds to the thin actin filaments, causing them to change their shape ever so slightly. This change exposes special binding sites on the actin, like little handles that were previously hidden. Now, the myosin heads can finally act. Energized by the ATP batteries from the mitochondria, the myosin heads reach out, grab onto these newly revealed handles on the actin filaments, and pull. This is the power stroke. It is a tiny, microscopic tug. After they pull, they let go, reset, and grab onto the next handle further down the line, pulling again. This doesn't happen just once. It happens with millions of myosin heads pulling on millions of actin filaments, all at the same time, all along the length of the muscle fibre. Each individual pull is minuscule, but the combined effect is powerful. The two sets of filaments slide past one another, causing the entire unit, the sarcoma, to shorten. As millions of these units shorten all at once, the entire muscle fibre contracts. It's not that the threads themselves get shorter, they simply slide over each other, like closing an accordion. This is the sliding filament theory. A silent symphony of microscopic movement that allows you to lift, to walk, and to live. From the powerful voluntary action of our skeletal muscles, we now turn our attention to the silent, tireless work of the body's unseen labourer, the smooth muscle. This remarkable tissue operates completely beyond our conscious control, a gentle, automatic force that manages the vast internal machinery of our organs. If skeletal muscle is the part of the workforce that builds the monuments and moves the mountains, smooth muscle is the part that keeps the city's water flowing, its waste managed, and its supply lines open, all without a single thought or command from us. You find smooth muscle in the walls of almost all of your hollow internal organs. Consider your digestive system. As food leaves your stomach and enters the long winding path of the intestines, it is the smooth muscle in the intestinal walls that propels it forward. It does this through slow, rhythmic, wave-like contractions called peristalsis. Imagine gently squeezing a tube of toothpaste from the bottom to move its contents toward the top. This is what the smooth muscle of your gut is doing right now as you rest. It is a slow, steady, and perfectly coordinated dance that ensures the process of digestion continues flawlessly. You will also find smooth muscle in the walls of your blood vessels, particularly your arteries. Here, its job is to help regulate blood pressure and the distribution of blood. When a certain part of your body needs more oxygen, the smooth muscle in the arteries leading to that area will relax, allowing the vessel to widen, a process called vasodilation, which increases blood flow. When the body needs to conserve heat or increase blood pressure, the smooth muscle will contract, narrowing the vessels in a process called vasoconstriction. This constant, subtle adjustment is happening all the time, ensuring every tissue gets exactly the blood supply it needs. Even the tiny muscles that cause the hair on your arms to stand on end when you're cold, or the muscles that adjust the pupil of your eye to changing light, are smooth muscles. They are the body's faithful automatons, the invisible hands that fine-tune the delicate internal environment. Their contractions are slower and more sustained than the rapid twitches of skeletal muscle. They are built for endurance, for the long, continuous work of maintaining life. As you lie here, take a moment to appreciate this unseen labour, the gentle, rhythmic work happening within you, a testament to the body's profound, self-regulating wisdom. Now we arrive at the most extraordinary and specialised member of the muscle family, a tissue that is a perfect blend of the other two, yet entirely unique in its function. This is cardiac muscle, and it is found in only one place in the entire human body, the walls of the heart. Like skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle is striated, its fibres filled with the same beautifully organised actin and myosin filaments, giving it immense power. But like smooth muscle, it is completely involuntary. We do not need to command our heart to beat. It does so on its own, with a faithfulness that is nothing short of miraculous. What truly sets cardiac muscle apart is a property called autorhythmicity. Within the heart, there is a small cluster of specialised cardiac muscle cells called the sinoatrial node, often known as the heart's natural pacemaker. These cells have the amazing ability to generate their own electrical impulses spontaneously, without any signal from the nervous system. This initial spark then spreads like a wave across the entire heart, from cell to cell. The cardiac muscle cells are connected to one another by special junctions called intercalated discs. You can imagine these as tiny interlocking bridges between the cells. These bridges not only hold the cells firmly together during the powerful contractions, but they also contain tiny channels that allow the electrical signal to pass directly and rapidly from one cell to the next. This ensures that all the cells of the heart's chambers contract in a single, coordinated, wave-like motion, creating the powerful pump of a heartbeat. This tissue is built for the ultimate marathon. It is packed with more mitochondria than any other muscle cell, a sign of its incredible demand for a constant supply of energy. It is designed never to tire, to beat steadily from the moment before birth to the very end of life. As you rest here, perhaps you can feel the gentle, steady rhythm of your own heart. That is the sound of this remarkable muscle, this faithful drummer, performing its singular, life-sustaining duty with a quiet, unwavering strength. Every contraction of a muscle, whether it's the powerful surge of a leg muscle or the gentle, rhythmic beat of the heart, requires energy. The body's machinery, like any engine, needs fuel to run. The universal fuel for all cellular activity, and especially for muscle contraction, is a tiny high-energy molecule we have met before, ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. Think of ATP as the body's only directly usable form of cash. You may have vast reserves of wealth stored away as fat or glycogen, but to actually buy something, to make a muscle contract, you need to pay with ATP. The process of the myosin heads grabbing and pulling on the actin filaments is an energy-intensive transaction, and each step requires the spending of one ATP molecule. A muscle cell only stores a very small amount of ATP at any given time, just enough for a few seconds of intense activity. This means that as soon as a muscle starts working, it must immediately begin producing more ATP to replenish its supply. The body has several ways of doing this, depending on the intensity and duration of the activity. For a very short, explosive burst of energy, like lifting a heavy weight, the muscle uses a system called the phosphagen system. It uses a molecule called creatine phosphate to quickly regenerate ATP. This is like having a small stack of pre-authorized credit cards ready for immediate use, but they run out in about 10-15 seconds. For slightly longer periods of activity, up to a couple of minutes, the muscles turn to anaerobic glycolysis. In this process, the muscle breaks down glucose, sugar, without using oxygen. This is a fast way to make ATP, but it's not very efficient, and it produces a byproduct called lactic acid. This is like taking out a high-interest short-term loan. It gives you quick cash, but it's not sustainable. For any sustained long-term activity, from a gentle walk to sleeping through the night, the muscles rely on the most efficient and sustainable process, aerobic respiration. This is the quiet, steady work of the mitochondria that we explored in the first chapter. Using the oxygen you breathe, the mitochondria can break down glucose and fat molecules to produce vast quantities of ATP. This is the body's main savings account, providing a slow, steady, and almost limitless supply of energy. As you rest peacefully, it is this gentle, oxygen-fueled process that is powering the quiet work of your body, ensuring every cell has the energy it needs to maintain the peace. Our exploration of the muscular system would be incomplete if we only focused on its action. For in the world of the body, stillness is just as important as movement. The cycle of rest and repair is essential for maintaining a healthy and strong muscular system. And it is a beautiful metaphor for the state you're drifting toward now. When we use our muscles, especially in a way that is more strenuous than usual, we create microscopic tears in the muscle fibers. This is not a bad thing. In fact, it is a necessary signal. This minor controlled damage is what triggers the body's natural repair process. It is the body's way of recognizing that the muscle needs to be stronger to meet future demands. During periods of rest, and most profoundly during deep sleep, the body switches from a state of action to a state of profound restoration. The autonomic nervous system shifts into its parasympathetic, or rest and digest mode. Blood flow is redirected, and the body's resources are mobilized for healing. Specialized cells, like satellite cells that lie dormant near the muscle fibers, are activated. They are like a dedicated on-site repair crew. They multiply and then fuse with the damaged muscle fibers, donating their nuclei and cytoplasm to help rebuild the fiber. They don't just patch the tear, they add new material, making the muscle fiber thicker and stronger than it was before. This is the very basis of how muscles grow and adapt. Furthermore, during sleep, the body releases growth hormone from the pituitary gland. This powerful hormone circulates through the body and plays a critical role in stimulating tissue repair and protein synthesis. It is the master signal that tells the body it is time to rebuild. So, as you lie here, letting your muscles soften and release, know that you are providing your body with the most precious gift. Rest is not an empty state of non-activity. It is a vital, active period of healing and regeneration. It is a quiet, sacred time when the body's microscopic construction crews are at their busiest, mending the day's wear and tear and gently preparing you for a new day. Embracing rest is embracing the body's own deep, innate wisdom. From the quiet stillness of muscle repair, we feel a gentle rhythmic pulse. This is the beat of the heart, the source of a great internal river that connects every part of the body. We now drift into that river to explore the vast and beautiful network of the circulatory system. At the very centre of your chest, nestled securely between your lungs and protected by the rib cage, lies the engine of your inner world, the heart. It is not a fragile, delicate thing of poetry, but a powerful muscular organ of incredible strength and endurance. Its sole purpose is to act as the unwavering pump that drives the river of life, your blood, throughout the entire kingdom of your body. The heart is roughly the size of your own clenched fist. It is divided into 4 distinct chambers. Think of it as a 2-story house with 2 rooms on the top floor and 2 rooms on the bottom. The 2 upper chambers are called the atria, and they are like the receiving rooms of the house. The right atrium receives the deoxygenated blood that is returning from its long journey through the body. The left atrium receives the fresh, oxygen-rich blood that is coming from the lungs. The 2 lower chambers are the ventricles, and they are the powerful shipping rooms. The right ventricle pumps the deoxygenated blood on a short trip next door to the lungs to pick up a fresh supply of oxygen. The left ventricle is the strongest chamber of all. Its walls are thick and powerful because it has the immense task of pumping the newly oxygenated blood out to the entire rest of the body, from the tips of your toes to the highest reaches of your brain. Between these chambers are a series of remarkable one-way doors, the heart valves. These valves are made of thin but strong flaps of tissue, and their job is to ensure that blood flows in only one direction. They open gracefully to let blood pass through and then snap shut with a soft, definitive sound to prevent any backward flow. The lub-dub sound of a heartbeat that a doctor hears with a stethoscope is the sound of these valves closing in a perfect rhythmic sequence. The lub is the sound of the valves between the atria and ventricles closing, and the dub is the sound of the valves leading out of the ventricles closing just after. This entire structure, this 4-chambered pump with its perfect valves, beats with a steady, reliable rhythm around 100,000 times a day, every day of your life, without ever pausing to rest. It is the ultimate symbol of the body's persistence and strength, the constant, gentle drumbeat that underscores every moment of your existence. As you rest, feel this quiet, powerful presence within you, a steady and reassuring anchor in the centre of your being. With each powerful contraction of the heart's left ventricle, a surge of bright red, oxygen-rich blood is pushed out into the body's main pipeline. This begins the journey of the Red River, the network of vessels known as the arteries. The largest artery in the body, the aorta, is like the great, primary river flowing out from the heart's dam. It is a huge, thick-walled vessel, almost an inch in diameter, and it has to be both strong and flexible to withstand the immense pressure of each heartbeat. From the aorta, the arterial river begins to branch. Imagine a great river splitting into smaller rivers, and then those rivers splitting into streams. This is what the arteries do. They branch and divide, becoming progressively smaller and smaller, reaching every single region of the body. The walls of the arteries are thick and muscular. They contain a layer of smooth muscle that allows them to constrict or relax, which helps the body regulate blood pressure and control where the blood flows. The elasticity of the arteries is also key. When the heart pumps, the walls of the arteries stretch outward to accommodate the surge of blood, just like a balloon expanding. Then, as the heart relaxes between beats, the elastic walls recoil, which helps to keep the blood moving forward and maintains a steady pressure throughout the system. This expansion and recoil of the arterial walls is what you feel when you take your pulse at your wrist or neck. It is the echo of your heartbeat, travelling through this red river system. The arteries are the body's great delivery network. They are the highways and roads that carry the most precious cargo, oxygen and nutrients, from the central processing centres out to every distant cell and tissue. They ensure that every citizen in the kingdom of your body receives the life-sustaining supplies it needs to function. As you rest, imagine this warm, red river flowing out from your heart, branching and reaching, bringing warmth and life to every part of you. After the red river of the arteries has delivered its life-giving cargo of oxygen and nutrients to the cells, a second river system begins its journey. This is the blue river of the veins, the network of vessels responsible for the quiet, steady return trip back to the heart. The blood flowing in the veins is deoxygenated, which gives it a darker purplish-red colour that often appears blue through the skin. The journey back to the heart is a different kind of trip. By the time the blood reaches the veins, the powerful push from the heart has largely dissipated. The pressure in the venous system is much, much lower. Because of this, the structure of the veins is different from that of the arteries. Their walls are thinner and less muscular. They are like quiet, slow-moving country rivers compared to the rushing, high-pressure highways of the arteries. Because the pressure is so low, especially in the veins of the limbs, there is a risk of blood flowing backward due to gravity. To solve this, the veins have a wonderful and simple innovation, a series of one-way valves. Imagine tiny paired flaps on the inside walls of the vein that open to allow blood to flow toward the heart but swing shut if it tries to fall backward. The movement of blood in the veins is also helped by the muscles around them. When you walk or move your limbs, the contraction of your skeletal muscles gently squeezes the nearby veins. This squeezing action, combined with the one-way valves, helps to milk the blood upward, against gravity, back toward the heart. This is called the skeletal muscle pump, and it is one of the main reasons why gentle movement is so good for circulation. The tiny streams of the venules merge into larger streams, which flow into the great rivers of the superior and inferior vena cava, the two largest veins in the body, which finally deliver the deoxygenated blood back to the heart's right atrium, ready to be sent to the lungs for a fresh breath of life. It is a slow, patient and gentle return journey, the quiet completion of a perfect circle. Between the end of the arterial red river and the beginning of the venous blue river lies a third, almost invisible network of vessels. This is where the real work of the circulatory system happens. These are the capillaries, and they are the most numerous and delicate blood vessels in the body. If the arteries are highways and the veins are rivers, then the capillaries are the misty, silent wetlands that connect them, the place where all the meaningful exchange occurs. Capillaries are so incredibly small that red blood cells have to line up in single file to pass through them. Their walls are astonishingly thin, made of just a single layer of cells. This delicate structure is their entire purpose. It is this thinness that allows for the magic of diffusion to happen with effortless ease. As the oxygen-rich blood from the arteries flows into the vast branching network of a capillary bed, the journey slows right down. The single-file red blood cells release their precious cargo of oxygen, which passes directly through the thin capillary wall and into the surrounding tissue fluid, to be taken up by a nearby cell. At the very same time, the waste products from the cell, like carbon dioxide, travel in the opposite direction, passing from the tissue fluid into the blood to be carried away on the return journey. This is not just about gases. Nutrients like glucose and amino acids also pass from the blood into the tissues, while metabolic wastes are collected. Hormones are delivered from the bloodstream to their target cells. It is a silent, microscopic, and profoundly efficient exchange market. Every single cell in your body is just a short distance away from a capillary, ensuring that no citizen of your internal kingdom is ever left wanting for supplies or burdened by its waste. The sheer number of capillaries is staggering. If you were to lay all the capillaries in your body end to end, they would stretch for over 50,000 miles, enough to circle the Earth twice. It is a vast, silent, and intricate network that permeates every single part of you. As you lie here, feel the peace of this gentle, silent exchange happening in every corner of your being, a constant, life-sustaining transaction that asks nothing of you but to rest. Now let us zoom in on the most famous resident of this river of life, the tireless courier that makes the entire system meaningful. This is the erythrocyte, or the red blood cell. It is a cell of beautiful simplicity and singular purpose, to transport oxygen from the lungs to the tissues and to help carry carbon dioxide away. The red blood cell is a masterpiece of functional design. As it matures in the bone marrow, it undertakes a remarkable act of sacrifice. It ejects its own nucleus, the library of instructions we met in the first chapter. It gets rid of its mitochondria, its power plants, and most of its other organelles. It sheds everything that is not absolutely essential for its mission. This selfless act achieves two things. First, it prevents the cell from consuming any of the precious oxygen it is carrying. It generates its own energy anaerobically. Second, it hollows out the cell, making it a perfect empty vessel, ready to be filled with its cargo. The shape of the red blood cell is also unique. It is not a sphere, but a biconcave disc. Imagine a soft, tiny donut that hasn't had the hole punched all the way through. This shape is ingenious. It dramatically increases the cell's surface area, which allows oxygen to diffuse in and out much more quickly. It also makes the cell incredibly flexible, able to bend and squeeze its way through the narrowest of capillaries without breaking. The space inside this hollowed-out cell is packed with about 270 million molecules of a very special protein called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the molecule that actually binds to and carries oxygen. At the heart of each hemoglobin molecule is an iron atom. It is this iron that gives blood its red colour, and it is the iron that has a special chemical attraction to oxygen. When the red blood cell passes through the oxygen-rich environment of the lungs, the iron atoms in its hemoglobin act like magnets, snatching up oxygen molecules. Then, when the cell travels to the oxygen-poor tissues of the body, the connection weakens, and the hemoglobin releases the oxygen, delivering it where it is needed most. The life of a red blood cell is a short but heroic journey of about 120 days. During that time, it will make the complete circuit of the body hundreds of thousands of times, a silent, selfless courier on a never-ending delivery route. Your body produces about 2 million new red blood cells every single second to replace the old ones that are recycled in the spleen and liver. It is a constant, quiet stream of creation, ensuring the river of life is always filled with these perfect, dedicated messengers. Travelling alongside the countless red couriers in the river of blood is a much rarer, but no less vital group of cells. These are the leukocytes, or white blood cells. If the red blood cells are the delivery service of the body, the white blood cells are its silent, vigilant guardians, the security force of the circulatory system. They are the mobile units of the immune system, constantly patrolling for any sign of trouble, from invading bacteria and viruses to the body's own damaged or cancerous cells. Unlike the uniform red blood cells, white blood cells are a diverse family of different cell types, each with a specialised role in protecting the kingdom. The most common type are the neutrophils. They are like the body's first responder foot soldiers. When an infection begins, they are the first to arrive at the scene in large numbers, drawn by chemical distress signals. They are phagocytes, which means they are eating cells. They have the ability to engulf and digest harmful bacteria in a process that is both efficient and self-sacrificing. Then there are the lymphocytes. These are the intelligence agents of the immune system. There are two main types, B cells and T cells. B cells are responsible for producing antibodies, which are like tiny, highly specific guided missiles that can latch onto an invader and mark it for destruction. T cells have a variety of roles. Some are helper, T cells that coordinate the entire immune response, while others are killer, T cells that can directly attack and destroy infected body cells. Another important type is the monocyte. These are the largest of the white blood cells. They circulate in the blood for a day or so before migrating into the tissues, where they mature into powerful cells called macrophages. Macrophages are the big eaters, the heavy-duty cleanup crew. They not only devour pathogens, but also clear away old, dead cells and other debris, keeping the body's tissues clean and healthy. Unlike red blood cells, which are confined to the blood vessels, white blood cells have the remarkable ability to leave the circulation. When they detect a problem in a tissue, they can squeeze themselves through the thin walls of the capillaries and move into the affected area to fight the infection directly. They are the guardians who can leave the roads and patrol the countryside, going wherever they are needed. They are a silent, ever-present army, flowing peacefully within you right now, ensuring the internal peace of your kingdom is maintained. In addition to the red and white cells, there is a third crucial element floating in the plasma of our blood. They are not even complete cells, but tiny, irregular-shaped fragments. These are the thrombocytes, more commonly known as platelets. Their role is perhaps the most magical of all. They are the body's immediate and expert repair crew, responsible for plugging any leaks that might appear in the vast network of blood vessels. Platelets circulate in the blood in an inactive, dormant state. They are smooth and disc-shaped, flowing along with the current without causing any trouble. However, they are exquisitely sensitive to any signs of damage to a blood vessel wall. When the smooth inner lining of a vessel is broken, the underlying collagen fibres are exposed. This exposure is like a chemical alarm bell for the platelets. As soon as platelets come into contact with this exposed collagen, they undergo a dramatic transformation. They instantly change their shape, growing long, sticky tentacles and becoming activated. They rush to the site of the injury and begin to stick to the exposed collagen and, just as importantly, to each other. They release chemical signals that call out to other nearby platelets, recruiting them to the scene. Within moments, they have formed a soft initial plug at the site of the injury. This is the first step in stopping the bleeding, but this initial plug is not very strong. So the second part of the magic begins. This is the clotting cascade. The activated platelets, along with the damaged tissue cells, release a series of clotting factors. These factors trigger a beautiful and complex chain reaction in the blood. The final step of this cascade is the conversion of a soluble protein in the blood called fibrinogen into an insoluble, sticky thread called fibrin. Imagine millions of tiny invisible threads suddenly appearing at the site of the injury. These fibrin threads weave themselves into and around the platelet plug, creating a strong, stable, web-like mesh. This mesh traps more platelets and red blood cells, forming a solid, stable clot that effectively seals the wound, stopping the bleeding and allowing the vessel wall to begin its healing process underneath. This entire complex cascade happens with incredible speed and precision, a silent, life-saving miracle that protects the precious river of life from being lost. As the river of life flows through its vast network of vessels, it exerts a gentle force on the walls of those vessels. This force is blood pressure, and it is one of the most vital signs of our health. It is not a static number, but a dynamic rhythmic pulse that reflects the very cycle of the heart itself. When you see a blood pressure reading, it is always given as two numbers, for example, 120/80. These two numbers represent the two phases of the heart's action. The first, higher number is the systolic pressure. This is the peak pressure in the arteries, which occurs when the heart's powerful left ventricle contracts and pushes a surge of blood out into the aorta. It is the measure of the force of the heartbeat itself, the crest of the wave. The second lower number is the diastolic pressure. This is the pressure in the arteries when the heart is at rest between beats. During this phase, the ventricle is relaxing and refilling with blood for the next contraction. The diastolic pressure reflects the background resistance and elasticity of the arterial walls, the gentle, constant pressure that keeps the blood flowing forward even when the pump is momentarily resting. It is the trough of the wave. Maintaining a healthy blood pressure is a delicate balancing act, managed silently by the body's autonomic nervous system and endocrine system. Specialized sensors in the arteries, called baroreceptors, constantly monitor the pressure. If the pressure rises too high, these sensors send a signal to the brain, which then instructs the heart to slow down and the smooth muscles in the artery walls to relax, widening the vessels to reduce the pressure. If the pressure drops too low, the brain will signal the heart to beat faster and the vessels to constrict, raising the pressure back to a normal level. This constant, subtle adjustment ensures that there is enough pressure to deliver blood to all the tissues of the body, even the brain, against the force of gravity, but not so much pressure that it damages the delicate walls of the arteries or overworks the heart. As you lie here in a state of calm, your heart rate slows and your blood pressure gently lowers. It is the physical manifestation of rest, the soft, steady pulse of a kingdom at peace. It is a reassuring rhythm, a sign that the river of life is flowing smoothly and gently through you. From the river of blood that carries oxygen, we now turn our attention to the system that draws this vital, invisible element from the world around us. We will follow the quiet, effortless rhythm of the breath as it connects our inner universe to the vast ocean of air. Welcome to the respiratory system. The act of breathing is perhaps the most fundamental rhythm of our lives. From our very first cry to our final exhalation, it is a constant, gentle companion. Most of the time, we are not even aware of it. It happens automatically, a silent, invisible tide that flows in and out, managed by the deep, unconscious wisdom of the body. This tide connects your inner world to the world around you in the most intimate way possible. With every inhalation, you're drawing a piece of the outside world deep into the sanctuary of your body. The air you're breathing now contains about 21% oxygen, a colourless, odourless gas that is the essential fuel for the trillions of mitochondria working in your cells. Without this constant supply, the gentle embers of cellular energy would quickly fade. The outbreath, the ebb of the tide, is a process of release. With every exhalation, you are returning to the world the primary waste product of your metabolic processes, carbon dioxide. It is a perfect, balanced exchange. You take in what you need, and you release what you no longer require. This cycle is a beautiful microcosm of life itself. The rhythm of this tide is controlled by a special centre in the most ancient part of your brain, the brainstem. This respiratory centre works silently in the background, monitoring the levels of oxygen and, more importantly, carbon dioxide in your blood. If the carbon dioxide level rises, a signal is sent to the muscles of respiration, telling them to breathe a little faster, a little deeper, to clear the excess. If the levels are low, the breathing slows. It is a perfectly calibrated feedback loop, ensuring you always have exactly what you need. While it is an automatic process, breathing is unique in that we can also take conscious control of it. We can hold our breath, or we can choose to breathe slowly and deeply. This gives us a direct, tangible way to influence our own physiology. By consciously slowing down the tide of our breath, we can send a powerful signal of safety and calm to our nervous system, gently lowering our heart rate and blood pressure. As you rest here, simply become aware of this invisible tide. Do not try to change it. Just notice the gentle rise and fall, the soft inflow and the complete release, the peaceful rhythm that sustains your entire being. As the tide of air is drawn into your body, it begins a journey down a specific and beautifully designed pathway. The journey starts in your nose and mouth. The nasal passages are especially important as they act as the first line of conditioning for the air. The passages are lined with a warm, moist mucous membrane and tiny hairs called cilia. As air passes through, it is warmed to body temperature, humidified so it won't dry out the delicate tissues deeper inside, and filtered of dust, pollen and other particles. From the back of the throat, the air passes down into the larynx or voice box and then enters the main airway, the trachea or windpipe. The trachea is a strong, wide tube, about 4 to 5 inches long. You can feel its firm ridges at the front of your neck. These ridges are C-shaped rings of cartilage. These rings are essential as they hold the trachea open, ensuring that this vital airway can never collapse. The back of the C is soft muscle, which allows the esophagus, which runs directly behind it, to expand when you swallow food. At its base, just behind the breastbone, the trachea divides into 2 smaller tubes. This branching point marks the beginning of the bronchial tree. There is a right bronchus that leads to the right lung, and a left bronchus that leads to the left lung. Once inside the lungs, this tree begins to branch, again and again and again, into progressively smaller and smaller airways. The main bronchi split into lobar bronchi, which then split into segmental bronchi, and then into thousands of tiny little tubes called bronchioles. It is a magnificent fractal pattern, like the branches of a great inverted tree, spreading out to reach every distant corner of the lungs. The purpose of this extensive branching is to deliver the inhaled air to the millions of tiny air sacs where the real work of respiration will take place. It is a silent, efficient distribution network, guiding the breath ever deeper into the quiet core of your being. At the end of this vast, branching network of airways, we find the core organs of the respiratory system, the lungs. The 2 lungs sit on either side of the heart, filling most of the chest cavity. They are not simply empty bags that inflate and deflate. They are incredibly complex, light and spongy organs, designed with the single, profound purpose of welcoming the breath and facilitating the exchange of gases. The lung tissue itself is remarkably light and elastic. If you could hold a healthy lung, you would be surprised by its soft, airy texture, much like a fine sponge. This sponginess is due to the fact that the vast majority of the lung's volume is made up of millions and millions of tiny hollow air sacs. The left lung is slightly smaller than the right, with a little indentation called the cardiac notch, which makes a perfect space for the heart to rest. Each lung is divided into sections or lobes. The right lung has 3 lobes, while the left has 2. Each lung is enclosed in a double-layered protective membrane called the pleura. The inner layer of the pleura clings to the surface of the lung, while the outer layer lines the inside of the chest wall. Between these two layers is a very thin space containing a small amount of lubricating fluid. This fluid is essential. It allows the lungs to glide smoothly and without friction against the chest wall as they expand and contract with each breath. It also creates a gentle surface tension that helps to keep the lungs stuck to the chest wall, so that when your chest expands, the lungs are pulled outward with it. The lungs have no muscles of their own. They are passive organs. Their movement is entirely dependent on the actions of the surrounding muscles, primarily the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles between the ribs. They are like beautiful willing sails that do not power themselves, but are designed to perfectly catch the wind that is provided for them. As you lie here, resting, imagine these two soft, light sponges within your chest, patiently waiting for each breath, ready to receive the gift of the air and infuse your body with life. We have followed the breath as it travels down the branching tree of the bronchi and bronchioles. At the very end of the tiniest of these branches, we arrive at the place where the true miracle of respiration occurs. Here, the airways open up into tiny grape-like clusters of microscopic air sacs. These are the alveoli, and they are the functional units of the lungs. There are approximately 300 to 500 million of these tiny shimmering bubbles in your lungs. If you were to flatten out the surface area of all these alveoli, they would cover an area the size of a tennis court. This immense surface area is the key to their incredible efficiency. The wall of each alveolus is exquisitely thin, made of just a single layer of flat cells. This is the delicate membrane that the gases must cross. Wrapped around each of these tiny air sacs is a dense web-like network of capillaries, the tiniest of the blood vessels we met in our last chapter. The walls of these capillaries are also only 1 cell thick. This means that the barrier between the air in your lungs and the blood in your circulation is almost unimaginably thin. 2 single layers of cells, back to back. Here, in this quiet microscopic space, the great exchange happens, driven by the simple, elegant laws of physics. The deoxygenated blood arriving from the heart is very low in oxygen and very high in carbon dioxide. The air you have just inhaled into the alveoli is the opposite, high in oxygen and low in carbon dioxide. Gases naturally move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration, and so, without any effort, oxygen molecules from the air diffuse across the thin alveolar and capillary walls and into the blood, where they are eagerly snatched up by the hemoglobin in the red blood cells. At the very same moment, the carbon dioxide molecules that the blood has carried back from the tissues diffuse in the opposite direction, from the blood into the air in the alveoli. This air, now enriched with carbon dioxide and depleted of some of its oxygen, is what you gently breathe out. This entire, beautiful transaction is silent, instantaneous, and perfect. It is the point where your inner world and the outer world truly meet and exchange gifts. As you rest, this peaceful, life-sustaining exchange is happening with every single breath. A constant, gentle miracle, ensuring that the river of your blood is always replenished with the breath of life. The lungs, as we've learned, are passive organs. They cannot move on their own. The engine that drives their movement, the primary muscle of respiration, is a magnificent dome-shaped sheet of muscle located at the base of the chest cavity. This is the diaphragm. It separates the chest from the abdomen, and it is the calm, powerful engine behind the body's most peaceful rhythm. When you're at rest, the diaphragm is relaxed and curved upward, like a gentle parachute that has settled on the floor. When it is time to inhale, a signal arrives from the respiratory center in your brainstem. The diaphragm contracts. As it contracts, it flattens and moves downward, pressing on the abdominal organs below. This downward movement has a profound effect. It dramatically increases the volume of the chest cavity. At the same time, the intercostal muscles between your ribs also contract, pulling the rib cage upward and outward. This action further increases the space within the chest. According to the laws of physics, when you increase the volume of a sealed container, the pressure inside it drops. So, as the chest cavity expands, the pressure inside your lungs becomes lower than the pressure of the air outside your body. This pressure difference creates a gentle vacuum, and air from the outside flows passively and quietly into the lungs to equalize the pressure. This is the act of inhalation, not a forceful sucking in of air, but a gentle passive filling of a newly created space. Exhalation, during quiet rest, is an even more passive process. The signal from the brain ceases, the diaphragm simply relaxes, and its natural elasticity causes it to return to its upward, dome-like shape. The intercostal muscles also relax, allowing the ribcage to settle back down. This decreases the volume of the chest cavity, which increases the pressure inside the lungs to be slightly higher than the outside air, and so the air gently and effortlessly flows back out. It is a beautiful, simple, and incredibly efficient mechanical process. The diaphragm is the tireless silent worker that powers this tide of breath, contracting and relaxing, rising and falling thousands of times an hour. As you lie here, you can place a hand on your belly and feel this gentle engine at work. Feel the soft rise with the in-breath as the diaphragm descends, and the gentle fall with the out-breath as it returns to rest. It is the rhythm of peace, the calm engine of your existence. As our gentle journey through the respiratory system comes to a close, let us focus on the profound connection between the breath and the state of rest you are now entering. The rhythm of your breathing is not just a reflection of your physical state. It is a powerful tool that can guide your mind into deeper states of calm and relaxation. When you are active or stressed, your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system, is dominant. Your breathing becomes faster and shallower, a response designed to prepare the body for action. But as you begin to relax and settle into a state of peace, your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, takes over. One of the most immediate and noticeable effects of this shift is the change in your breathing pattern. Your breath naturally begins to slow down. The rhythm becomes more regular, like a gentle, predictable wave. The exhalation, in particular, often becomes slightly longer than the inhalation. The outbreath is deeply connected to the body's relaxation response. Physiologically, it is the phase of letting go, of release. With every gentle exhalation, you're not only releasing carbon dioxide, but you can also imagine that you're releasing the tensions of the day. Think of each breath out as a physical act of surrender. You're surrendering the weight of your body more fully to the surface beneath you. You're surrendering the busy thoughts of your mind, allowing them to drift away like clouds on the breeze. You're giving your body permission to enter a state of profound restoration. This slow, gentle rhythm is the lullaby of your own biology. It is a signal to every cell in your body that you're safe, that all is well, and that it is time to rest. As you continue to drift, simply allow your awareness to rest on this peaceful rhythm. Feel the cool air gently entering, and the warm air softly leaving. There is nothing else you need to do. Your body knows this rhythm perfectly. It is the ancient, soothing cadence of life itself, gently carrying you now toward the peaceful shores of sleep and preparing us to explore the master system that commands all of these unconscious wonders. From the gentle, automatic rhythm of the breath, we now drift deeper into the silent, intricate network that perceives, processes, and coordinates every aspect of our being. This is the command center, the body's vast communication network, the gentle storyteller of our experience. We are now entering the realm of the nervous system. To try and comprehend the nervous system is to gaze into a universe of staggering complexity and beauty. An early scientist once described it as an enchanted loom, where millions of flashing shuttles weave a dissolving pattern that is always meaningful, though never abiding. This metaphor is perhaps the most beautiful way to begin our journey. Your nervous system is not a machine or a computer. It is a living, shimmering tapestry of connections, constantly weaving together your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations, and your actions into the seamless experience of being you. This vast network is composed of two main parts. The first is the central nervous system, or CNS. This is the body's central command. It consists of the brain, housed safely within the skull and the spinal cord, protected by the vertebral column. Think of the brain as the master weaver, the creative artist who designs the pattern of the tapestry. The spinal cord is the main conduit, the great loom itself, through which the primary threads pass. The second part is the peripheral nervous system, or PNS. This is the vast network of nerves that extend from the central nervous system out to every distant corner of the body. It is like the millions of threads that run from the loom to every part of the tapestry, carrying messages back and forth. The peripheral nervous system has its own subdivisions. The sensory division is what brings information in, carrying signals from your skin, your eyes, and your ears to the central command telling you about the world around you. The motor division is what carries instructions out, from the brain and spinal cord to your muscles and glands, telling your body how to respond. This enchanted loom works with incredible speed, using a combination of electrical and chemical signals to transmit information in fractions of a second. It is what allows you to feel the softness of your blanket, to hear the sound of my voice, and to command your muscles to relax, all in a single, fluid moment. It is the system that orchestrates the automatic beating of your heart and the gentle rhythm of your breath. It is the weaver of your dreams and the keeper of your memories. As we journey through this system, we will do so with a sense of quiet awe, exploring the delicate threads and silent sparks that create the rich and vibrant tapestry of your life. At the very heart of this enchanted loom, the fundamental thread from which the entire tapestry is woven is a single, extraordinary cell, the neuron. This is the basic unit of the nervous system, a cell specially designed for the sole purpose of transmitting information. It is not like the other cells we have met. It is a messenger, a carrier of tiny sparks of light through the quiet inner darkness of the body. A neuron has a unique and beautiful structure. It has a main cell body, which contains the nucleus and other organelles, much like a typical cell. But extending from this body are a number of fine, branching fibres. On one side are the dendrites. You can think of these as the neuron's delicate antennas. They are short, tree-like branches that receive signals from other neurons. They are the listeners, constantly gathering information from the surrounding network. On the other side, extending from the cell body, is a single, long fibre called the axon. The axon is the transmitter. It is a long, slender cable that carries messages away from the cell body and toward other neurons, muscles, or glands. Some axons are very short, while others, like those that run from your lower back down to your big toe, can be over 3 feet long. Many axons are wrapped in a special fatty insulating layer called the myelin sheath. This sheath is like the rubber insulation on an electrical wire. It is not continuous, but is formed in segments with small, naked gaps in between. This insulation allows the electrical signal to travel much, much faster, as it leaps from one gap to the next in a process called saltatory conduction. The message itself is a fascinating thing. It is an electrochemical signal called an action potential. When the neuron is at rest, there is a slight electrical difference between the inside and the outside of its membrane. When it receives enough stimulation from its dendrites, special channels in the membrane at the base of the axon fly open, allowing charged ions to rush into the cell. This momentarily reverses the electrical charge at that spot, creating a tiny spark of electrical energy. This spark then triggers the same event in the section of axon right next to it, and so on, creating a wave of electrical charge that travels down the entire length of the axon, like a lit fuse on a firework. This is the nerve impulse, a whisper of lightning, a fleeting messenger of thought, sensation and action, flowing through the trillions of connections that make up your mind and body. We have seen how a single neuron can carry a message, a spark of lightning down its long axon. But the nervous system is a network, which means that the message must be passed from one neuron to the next. Neurons do not actually touch each other. Between the end of one neuron's axon and the beginning of the next neuron's dendrite, there is a tiny infinitesimal gap. This microscopic space is called the synapse, and it is a place of profound chemical magic. For a message to continue its journey, it must cross this gap. It must make a leap of faith. The electrical spark, the action potential, cannot jump across this space on its own. So, as the electrical signal reaches the very tip of the axon, it triggers a remarkable transformation. At the axon terminal are hundreds of tiny little sacs or vesicles, each one filled with special chemical messenger molecules called neurotransmitters. When the electrical impulse arrives, it causes these vesicles to move to the very edge of the cell membrane and release their contents into the synaptic gap. The message is instantly converted from an electrical language into a chemical one. These neurotransmitter molecules then float across the tiny space and bind to specific receptor sites on the dendrites of the next neuron, like a key fitting into a lock. This binding action either excites or inhibits the receiving neuron. If it is an excitatory signal, it will cause ion channels on the new neuron to open, which may start a new electrical action potential in that cell, continuing the message on its way. If it is an inhibitory signal, it will make it less likely for the new neuron to fire. This entire process, the release, the diffusion, and the binding of neurotransmitters, happens in less than 1,000th of a second. Once the message has been delivered, the neurotransmitters are quickly cleared out of the synapse, either by being broken down by enzymes or by being reabsorbed back into the neuron that released them. This ensures that the message is brief and precise, and that the synapse is ready for the next signal. Every thought you have, every sensation you feel, every memory you recall, involves the passage of these chemical whispers across trillions of these tiny magical gaps. It is a silent chemical ballet that forms the basis of all that you are. At the very top of the nervous system, resting safely inside the protective dome of the skull, is the most complex and mysterious object in the known universe, the human brain. It is the master weaver of the enchanted loom, the central command from which all conscious thought, feeling and action originates. Weighing about 3 pounds, it has the consistency of soft tofu, yet it contains around 86 billion neurons, each one capable of making thousands of connections with other neurons. The number of possible pathways and connections in a single human brain is greater than the number of stars in our galaxy. The brain's surface is a landscape of deep folds and wrinkles. This wrinkling is a clever evolutionary strategy to dramatically increase the surface area of the brain's outer layer, the cerebral cortex, so that more neurons and connections can be packed into the limited space of the skull. The cortex is the home of our higher-level thinking. It is divided into 2 hemispheres, a left and a right, which are connected by a thick bundle of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum, allowing them to communicate. The cortex itself is further divided into 4 main lobes, each with its own general specializations. At the front is the frontal lobe, the center of our personality, planning, decision-making, and voluntary movement. Just behind it is the parietal lobe, which processes sensory information like touch, temperature, and pain, and gives us our sense of spatial awareness. At the side is the temporal lobe, responsible for processing sounds, understanding language, and forming memories. And at the very back is the occipital lobe, which is dedicated almost entirely to processing the visual information that comes from our eyes. But the cortex is just the outer layer. Deeper within the brain are older, more primitive structures that manage the fundamental processes of life. The limbic system, which includes structures like the amygdala and hippocampus, is the emotional core of the brain, processing feelings like fear and pleasure, and playing a vital role in memory formation. The thalamus acts as a central relay station, directing almost all incoming sensory information to the correct part of the cortex for processing. Below it, the hypothalamus is the master regulator of the body's internal environment, controlling things like body temperature, hunger, and thirst, and acting as the link between the nervous system and the hormonal endocrine system. And at the very base of the brain, connecting to the spinal cord, is the brainstem. This is the most ancient part of the brain, and it controls the most essential automatic functions for survival: our heartbeat, our breathing, and our states of wakefulness and sleep. As you rest now, it is your brainstem that is maintaining the gentle rhythm of your life, allowing the higher, conscious parts of your brain to quiet down and drift into peace. Extending downward from the base of the brain and running through the protective bony canal of the spine is the second major component of the central nervous system, the spinal cord. If the brain is the central command headquarters, the spinal cord is the main superhighway of information, the great, protected river through which almost all communication between the brain and the body must flow. The spinal cord is a long, thick bundle of nerve tissue, about 18 inches long and as wide as your thumb. It is not just a simple cable, but a complex and intelligent structure in its own right. It is made of 2 types of tissue. In the centre, in a butterfly or H shape, is the grey matter. This is primarily made up of the cell bodies of neurons and their local connections. Surrounding this is the white matter. The white matter consists of the long myelinated axons of neurons, bundled together into tracts. These tracts are the actual highways, with some carrying sensory information up to the brain, ascending tracts, and others carrying motor commands down from the brain, descending tracts. The spinal cord has 2 primary functions. The first is to be this 2-way conduit of information. When you touch something soft with your fingertips, The sensory neurons in your skin send a signal up through the nerves of your arm into the spinal cord. This signal then travels up an ascending track to the brain, which interprets the signal as the sensation of softness. When you decide to move your foot, the motor cortex in your brain sends a command down a descending tract of the spinal cord. The signal travels to the appropriate level of the cord, where it then connects with a motor neuron that exits the cord and travels to the muscles in your foot, telling them to contract. Its second, equally important function is to manage reflexes. A reflex is a rapid, involuntary response to a stimulus that happens without involving the brain. This is a protective mechanism. If you touch something painfully hot, the sensory signal travels to the spinal cord, but instead of going all the way up to the brain for a decision, it synapses directly in the grey matter with a motor neuron. This motor neuron immediately sends a signal back to the muscles of your arm to pull your hand away. This happens in a fraction of a second, much faster than if the signal had to travel to the brain and back. The brain is informed that the event happened, which is why you feel the pain, but the protective action is already complete, thanks to the quick intelligence of the spinal cord. It is a faithful and efficient guardian, managing both the routine flow of information and our immediate safety. Now that we have explored the brain and spinal cord, the central command, it is time to appreciate how this command center connects with the rest of the body. The nervous system, as a whole, can be gently divided into two great kingdoms that work in perfect partnership. The first kingdom, which we have just visited, is the central nervous system, CNS. It is composed entirely of the brain and the spinal cord. You can think of this as the kingdom's capital city and its main royal highway. It is where all the major decisions are made, where information is integrated, and where the memories of the kingdom are stored. It is the seat of power and consciousness, encased in the protective armour of the skull and spine. The second kingdom is the peripheral nervous system, PNS. This kingdom comprises everything else, the vast network of nerves that branch out from the brain and spinal cord, reaching every remote village and outpost in the body. If the CNS is the capital, the PNS is the entire network of roads, messengers, and telegraph lines that connect the capital to the provinces. These nerves are bundles of axons from many different neurons, wrapped together in a protective sheath, like a massive telephone cable. The peripheral nerves that emerge from the brain are called cranial nerves, and they mostly serve the head and neck, controlling things like sight, smell, hearing, and facial movements. The nerves that emerge from the spinal cord at each vertebral level are called spinal nerves, and they serve the rest of the body from your shoulders down to your toes. The PNS acts as the liaison between the central command and the environment. It is constantly gathering sensory information about light, sound, touch, and the body's internal state, and relaying it to the CNS for processing. And it is constantly receiving motor commands from the CNS and delivering them to the muscles and glands, telling them how to act. Without the peripheral nervous system, the brain and spinal cord would be isolated, unable to know what is happening in the world or to exert any control over the body. Together, these two kingdoms form a single, seamless and magnificent whole, a network that allows you to experience and interact with your world. Within the vast peripheral nervous system, there is a special division that operates silently in the background without any conscious effort on our part. This is the autonomic nervous system, ANS, and it is the unseen hand that manages the body's internal environment. It is the system responsible for controlling all the things we don't have to think about: our heart rate, our digestion, our breathing rate, our body temperature, and our blood pressure. It is the body's gentle and wise autopilot. The autonomic nervous system itself is composed of two branches that work in a beautiful balancing opposition, like the two pedals of a car, one for acceleration and one for braking. The first branch is the sympathetic nervous system. This is the fight or flight system. It is designed to prepare the body for action, for times of stress, danger, or excitement. When the sympathetic system is activated, it triggers a cascade of changes. It increases your heart rate and blood pressure, getting more blood to your muscles. It widens your airways to let in more oxygen. It stimulates the release of adrenaline and causes the liver to release sugar into the bloodstream for quick energy. It slows down non-essential processes like digestion. It is the accelerator, the system that gives you the resources you need to face a challenge. The second branch is the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the rest and digest system. Its role is to calm the body down and to conserve energy. It is the brake pedal. When the parasympathetic system is dominant, it does the opposite of the sympathetic. It slows the heart rate and lowers blood pressure. It constricts the pupils of the eyes. It stimulates the processes of digestion and the elimination of waste. It is the system that promotes healing, repair, and restoration. In a healthy body, these two systems are in a constant gentle dance, a dynamic balance. The sympathetic system gets you through the active parts of your day, and the parasympathetic system takes over when it is time for peace and recovery. As you lie here, settling into a state of deep relaxation, you are consciously inviting your parasympathetic nervous system to take the lead. You're gently pressing the brake, telling your body that it is safe, that the time for action is over, and that the time for quiet, healing rest has begun. Let us linger for a moment in the peaceful realm of the parasympathetic nervous system, for this is the state that governs the gentle transition into sleep. This is the body's sanctuary mode, its innate system for healing, recovery, and profound calm. When this system is dominant, the entire physiology of your body shifts away from alertness and toward a state of deep and nourishing rest. The primary nerve of the parasympathetic system is the vagus nerve. It is a long, wandering nerve that originates in the brainstem and travels down through the neck and chest to the abdomen, connecting with the heart, the lungs, and the digestive organs. Think of it as a great calming river that flows from your brain to your core, carrying messages of peace and safety. When you engage in activities that promote relaxation, such as slow, deep breathing, you're directly stimulating your vagus nerve. As this nerve is stimulated, it releases a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine at its nerve endings. In the heart, acetylcholine binds to the pacemaker cells and gently slows their firing rate, causing your heart to beat more slowly and softly. Your blood pressure naturally decreases as the smooth muscles in your vessel walls are told to relax. In the lungs, it causes the airways to constrict slightly, as the body's need for high volumes of oxygen diminishes. Your breathing becomes slower, deeper, and more effortless. In the digestive system, the parasympathetic influence is one of stimulation. Blood flow increases to the stomach and intestines, and the rhythmic contractions of peristalsis become more active. The body takes this time of safety and stillness to focus on the important work of processing nutrients and replenishing its energy stores. This state is the very opposite of stress. It is a time when the body's resources are turned inward, dedicated to the vital tasks of repair and regeneration. It is a physiological state of letting go. As you lie here, feeling your body grow heavy and still, you are experiencing the gentle, pervasive influence of this calming system. You are allowing the river of the vagus nerve to flow unimpeded, washing over your internal landscape with a message of profound peace, creating the perfect internal environment for sleep to arise. As the parasympathetic system guides us into a state of rest, we finally cross the threshold into the mysterious and essential realm of sleep. For a long time, sleep was thought of as a passive state, a time when the brain simply shut off. But we now know that the sleeping brain is incredibly active, performing a host of vital functions that are essential for our physical and mental health. As you drift off, your brain waves begin to slow and become more rhythmic. You enter the stages of non-REM, rapid eye movement sleep. In the deeper stages of non-REM sleep, your brain waves are very slow and large. This is the time of greatest physical restoration. Your body releases growth hormone, which promotes tissue repair and cell regeneration. Your immune system becomes more active, producing the proteins needed to fight infection. It is a time of deep, quiet, physical housekeeping. But then, several times throughout the night, your brain activity changes dramatically. You enter the stage of sleep known as REM sleep. During this stage, your brain waves become fast and active, almost indistinguishable from when you are awake. Your eyes begin to dart back and forth beneath your closed eyelids, which is where the name rapid eye movement comes from. Your breathing and heart rate can become irregular, and yet your voluntary muscles are almost completely paralyzed. This is the stage of sleep where most of our vivid dreaming occurs. The purpose of REM sleep and dreams is still one of science's great wonders, but it is believed to be crucial for our mental and emotional health. Think of the sleeping brain as a wise and gentle librarian working the night shift. During REM sleep, the librarian is busy sorting through all the information and experiences you gathered during the day. It is a time of memory consolidation. Important memories are strengthened and transferred to long-term storage, like placing valuable books on the permanent shelves. Unimportant information is pruned away, clearing space and reducing clutter. REM sleep is also thought to be a form of emotional therapy. The brain appears to reprocess emotional experiences from the day, but in a neurochemical environment that is low in stress-related chemicals. This may help to soften the sharp edges of difficult memories and integrate our emotional lives. And so, as you sleep, your brain is not idle. It is a quiet gardener, tending the landscape of your mind, weeding, watering, and preparing you to wake up refreshed, restored, and ready for a new day. From the deep internal world of the dreaming brain, our journey now brings us to the very edge of our physical being. We arrive at the soft, sensitive barrier that contains our entire inner universe and meets the outer world. This is the body's largest organ, the vast and intelligent landscape of the skin. The skin, which we call the integumentary system, is so much more than a simple covering. It is a vast, living, and incredibly complex organ that serves as the gentle boundary between the safe, stable world within you and the ever-changing world outside. It is your personal frontier, a place of both protection and profound connection. Weighing more than any of your internal organs, it is a dynamic and responsive system that performs a multitude of vital roles. First and foremost, your skin is your primary shield. It provides a physical barrier against a host of potential threats. It protects you from harmful bacteria, viruses, and other pathogens, preventing them from entering your body. A special protein called keratin makes the outer layer of the skin tough and waterproof, keeping your precious internal fluids in and excess water out. It is your body's own perfect, self-repairing raincoat. The skin is also your first line of defense against the physical environment. It shields the delicate tissues underneath from scrapes, bumps, and the damaging ultraviolet radiation from the sun. The pigment melanin, which gives skin its colour, is a natural sunblock, absorbing UV rays to protect the cell's precious DNA. But the skin is not just a passive barrier. It is also a critical regulator of your internal climate. It plays a central role in controlling your body temperature. When you get too hot, tiny blood vessels in the skin widen, allowing more blood to flow close to the surface, releasing heat into the air. At the same time, your sweat glands release perspiration, which cools your body as it evaporates. When you are cold, these same blood vessels constrict, conserving heat, and the smooth muscles attached to your hair follicles contract, creating goosebumps. Perhaps most beautifully, the skin is your primary organ of communication with the physical world. It is embedded with millions of nerve endings that allow you to feel the vast spectrum of sensation. The gentle pressure of a blanket, the warmth of the sun, the coolness of a breeze. It is through your skin that you connect with the world through the intimate language of touch. It is both a fortress and a gateway, the resilient yet sensitive wrapping that holds the entire universe of you. To truly appreciate this magnificent organ, we must journey through its geography, exploring the 3 distinct layers that make up its structure. Each layer has its own unique character and purpose, like the different strata of the earth, from the surface that meets the sky to the deep foundation that anchors it to the world below. The outermost layer, the one you can see and touch, is the epidermis. This is the body's primary protective shield. The epidermis itself is made of multiple layers of cells. At its very base is a layer of living, dividing cells. As new cells are born here, they are slowly pushed upward, away from their blood supply. As they travel, they undergo a process called keratinization. They mature, flatten, and fill up with the tough, waterproof protein keratin, and then they die. The very surface of your skin, the stratum corneum, is composed of about 20-30 layers of these dead, flattened cells. This might sound unpleasant, but it creates a formidable and constantly renewing barrier. You are shedding these outer cells all the time, and they are constantly being replaced from below. This entire journey, from a cell's birth at the base of the epidermis to being shed from the surface, takes about a month. The epidermis is also where you find melanocytes, the cells that produce the pigment melanin. Beneath the epidermis lies the second, much thicker layer, the dermis. This is the functional heart of the skin. If the epidermis is the shield, the dermis is the living city beneath it. The dermis is a dense, fibrous layer of connective tissue, rich in collagen for strength, and elastin for flexibility and resilience. This is what gives skin its supple, elastic quality. the dermis is teeming with life. It is where you find the blood vessels that nourish the skin and help regulate temperature. It is home to the nerve endings and receptors that give us our sense of touch, pressure, and pain. The sweat glands that produce sweat and the sebaceous glands that produce the skin's natural oil are located here. The hair follicles, the tiny pits from which each hair grows, are also rooted deep within the dermis. It is a busy, dynamic layer, providing all the support and infrastructure for the organ. Finally, beneath the dermis lies the deepest layer, the hypodermis, or subcutaneous tissue. This layer is not technically part of the skin, but it is the crucial anchor that connects the skin to the underlying muscles and bones. The hypodermis is primarily composed of adipose tissue or fat. This fatty layer serves as an excellent shock absorber, cushioning the deeper tissues from bumps and impacts. It also provides a vital layer of insulation, helping to conserve body heat. And it serves as a major storage site for energy in the form of fat. It is the soft, deep foundation that supports the layers above, completing the skin's complex and beautiful architecture. Woven into the deepest layer of the epidermis are special star-shaped cells called melanocytes. These cells are the body's artists, the producers of a remarkable pigment called melanin. Melanin is what gives our skin, our hair, and our eyes their unique and beautiful colour. But its purpose is far more profound than mere aesthetics. It is one of the body's most elegant and essential forms of protection. Think of melanin as the body's own living stardust, a personal shield against the powerful energy of the sun. There are different types of melanin which produce the vast spectrum of human skin tones, from the fairest ivories to the deepest ebonies. The number of melanocyte cells is roughly the same in all people, regardless of their skin colour. The difference lies in how active these cells are and what type and amount of melanin they produce. The primary function of melanin is to absorb ultraviolet, UV radiation from sunlight. UV radiation can be very damaging to cells, particularly to the precious DNA within the nucleus. Damage to DNA can lead to mutations and skin cancer. When your skin is exposed to sunlight, it triggers the melanocytes to increase their production of melanin. The melanin is packaged into little granules and then transferred to the surrounding skin cells, the keratinocytes. These melanin granules then perform a beautiful act of selfless protection. They arrange themselves inside the keratinocytes to form a tiny protective cap over the cell's nucleus, like a tiny parasol shielding the DNA from the incoming UV rays. The melanin absorbs the UV energy and dissipates it harmlessly as heat. The visible sign of this protective response is what we call a tan. A tan is not just a change in colour, it is a physical manifestation of your skin actively defending itself. This pigment is a gift from our evolutionary past, an adaptation to the varying levels of sun exposure in different parts of the world. In regions with intense sun, darker skin rich in melanin provided a crucial advantage, protecting against sun damage and the breakdown of folate, an important vitamin. In regions with less sun, lighter skin allowed for more efficient production of vitamin D, which requires some UV exposure. It is a beautiful testament to the adaptability of the human body, a living pigment that connects our personal biology to the light of the sun and the history of our planet. While the skin is our great protector, it is also our most intimate connection to the world. It is the organ that allows us to experience the profound and subtle language of touch. Woven throughout the dermis and extending up into the epidermis is a vast and complex network of nerve fibres and specialised receptor cells. These are the tiny antennas that are constantly gathering information about our physical surroundings and sending it to the brain for interpretation. This network is not uniform. It is a rich tapestry of different types of receptors, each one specialised to detect a different kind of sensation. There are the Merkel cells and Meissner's corpuscles, which are found in the upper layers of the skin, especially in sensitive areas like the fingertips and lips. They are responsible for detecting light touch and fine textures, allowing you to feel the difference between silk and sandpaper, or to read Braille. Deeper in the dermis are the Pacinian corpuscles. These receptors are shaped like tiny onions with many concentric layers. They are designed to detect deep pressure and vibrations. They are what allow you to feel the hum of a machine or the thrum of a bass note through the floor. The Ruffini endings are another type of receptor that responds to sustained pressure and stretch, giving you a sense of skin, stretch, and joint position. Then there are the free nerve endings. These are the simplest and most common type of receptor. They are fine, branching nerve fibers that extend throughout the skin, and they are responsible for detecting temperature, both heat and cold, and importantly pain. Pain is an unpleasant but vital sensation. It is the body's alarm system, alerting the brain to potential or actual tissue damage and prompting a protective response. The density of these receptors varies dramatically across the body. Your fingertips, for example, have an incredibly high concentration of touch receptors, making them exquisitely sensitive. The skin on your back has far fewer. This rich and varied sensory information is constantly flowing from your skin to your brain, even when you're not consciously paying attention. It is painting a continuous, detailed, and vibrant picture of your physical reality. As you lie here, feel the gentle, reassuring pressure of the blanket against your skin. This simple, comforting sensation is a gift from this intricate network, a quiet message of safety and peace being sent to your brain. The skin is not a dry, static barrier. It is a living ecosystem that actively maintains and conditions itself. Two of the most important players in this process are the substances produced by two different types of glands located in the dermis, sebum and sweat. Together, they create the body's own perfect self-regulating raincoat and climate control system. Nestled alongside most hair follicles are tiny glands called sebaceous glands. These glands produce an oily, waxy substance called sebum. Sebum travels up the hair follicle and is secreted onto the surface of the skin. This natural oil is the body's own moisturizer. It spreads out to form a thin, protective film that coats the skin, locking in moisture and keeping the skin soft, supple, and pliable. Without sebum, our skin would quickly become dry, brittle, and cracked. This oily layer also provides a degree of waterproofing, helping to prevent excess water from both entering and leaving the body. Furthermore, sebum has mild antibacterial properties. It helps to maintain the skin's natural acidity, creating an environment that is less hospitable to the growth of harmful bacteria. The other crucial secretion is sweat, produced by the sweat glands. There are two main types, but the most numerous are the eccrine glands, which are found all over the body. These glands produce a clear, watery fluid that is primarily composed of water, with some salts and other waste products mixed in. The most well-known function of sweat is thermoregulation, or cooling the body. When your body temperature rises, these glands release sweat onto the skin's surface. As this water evaporates, it takes a great deal of heat with it, effectively cooling you down. But sweat also plays a role in protection. It helps to flush away dirt and microbes from the skin's surface, and the salts and acidic nature of sweat also contribute to the acid mantle, the skin's protective barrier that discourages bacterial growth. Together, this gentle film of oil and water creates a dynamic, protective, and perfectly balanced microenvironment on the surface of your skin, a testament to the body's quiet, self-sufficient wisdom. Extending from the skin are two structures that are often seen as purely cosmetic, but which have their roots in our deep evolutionary past as forms of gentle armor and sensory tools. These are our hair and our nails. Both are made primarily of keratin, the same tough fibrous protein that makes up the outer layer of our skin. Hair grows from follicles, which are deep, narrow pits in the dermis. At the base of each follicle is a small bulb where the hair cells are actively dividing and growing. As new cells are formed, they push the older cells upward. These older cells become filled with keratin and die, forming the hair shaft that we see. The colour of the hair is determined by the melanin produced by melanocytes in the follicle. While the hair on our bodies is much finer than that of our mammalian ancestors, it still serves several subtle functions. The hair on our head provides some protection from sunlight and insulation from cold. Our eyebrows help to keep sweat from running into our eyes, and our eyelashes act as tiny, sensitive dust catchers, triggering a blink reflex to protect the eye. The very fine hairs on our body, while not providing much insulation, are connected to nerve endings at their base. When a gentle breeze blows or an insect lands on your arm, the movement of the hair shaft stimulates these nerves, acting as an early warning and sensory system. Our nails are found on the tips of our fingers and toes. They are essentially flattened, hardened plates of keratin. They grow from a special area of cells at the base of the nail called the nail matrix. Similar to hair, new cells are produced here, pushing the older, dead, keratinized cells forward. creating the nail plate. The primary function of our nails is to protect the sensitive tips of our digits. They act like small protective shields for an area that is rich in nerve endings and is constantly interacting with the world. They also provide a firm backing that enhances our ability to pick up small objects and to have a sensitive sense of touch. They are the gentle, resilient remnants of the claws of our ancestors, now repurposed for protection and dexterity in our modern world. We conclude our exploration of the skin by returning to one of its most wondrous properties, its capacity for constant, silent renewal. Your skin is not a static covering, it is in a perpetual state of rebirth, completely replacing itself over and over again throughout your life. This cycle is a quiet, powerful testament to the body's innate drive for health and wholeness. The engine of this renewal is the deepest layer of the epidermis, the stratum basale. Here, a single layer of stem cells is in a constant state of mitosis, the gentle dance of cell division we witnessed in our first chapter. These cells are continually creating new skin cells, or keratinocytes. As a new cell is born, it pushes the cell above it upward, beginning a slow, steady journey toward the surface of your body. This journey is a one-way trip of maturation and sacrifice. As the cell moves further away from the dermis, it also moves away from its supply of blood and nutrients. It begins to change, producing more and more of the tough protein keratin. It flattens out, loses its nucleus and other organelles, and eventually it dies. By the time it reaches the outermost layer, the stratum corneum, it is little more than a flat, tough, keratin-filled packet. These dead cells form the protective shield we rely on, but they do not stay there forever. They are constantly being sloughed off, shed into the environment as dust. You lose millions of these cells every single day without ever noticing, and for every cell that is shed, a new one is being born at the base of the epidermis to begin its own journey. This entire cycle, from birth to shedding, takes about 4 to 6 weeks. This means that the skin you have today is not the same skin you had last month, and it is not the same skin you will have next month. This process is also the basis of healing. When you get a shallow cut or scrape that only affects the epidermis, the body doesn't just patch the hole. The stem cells at the base of the epidermis simply increase their rate of division, quickly producing new cells to fill the gap from the bottom up, leaving no scar. It is a perfect, seamless process of regeneration. As you lie here, this quiet, invisible miracle of renewal is happening all over your body, ensuring that your boundary with the world is always fresh, whole, and strong. From the outer boundary of the skin, our journey now takes a deep dive inward, into the warm, dark, and wondrous core of the body. We're entering the alchemist's laboratory, the long winding passage where the outside world, in the form of food, is magically transformed into the very substance of our being. This is the digestive system. Every grand journey must have a beginning, and for the digestive system, that beginning is the mouth. This is the welcoming chamber, the portal through which the outside world is first invited into our inner landscape. The process that unfolds here is far more than just simple mechanics. It is the first, crucial step in a profound act of transformation. The moment food enters the mouth, a symphony of coordinated actions begins. The teeth, our strong and capable tools, begin the process of mechanical digestion. The incisors at the front are designed for cutting, while the molars at the back have broad, bumpy surfaces perfect for grinding and crushing. This action, called mastication or chewing, breaks down large pieces of food into smaller, more manageable ones. This is important because it dramatically increases the surface area of the food, which will give the digestive enzymes more places to work their magic later on. At the same time, the mouth is bathed in a special fluid produced by the salivary glands. This is saliva, and it begins the process of chemical digestion. Saliva is mostly water, which moistens the food and helps to bind it together into a soft, easily swallowed ball called a bolus. But saliva also contains a special enzyme called amylase. This enzyme immediately begins to break down complex carbohydrates or starches into simpler sugars. This is why if you chew a piece of bread for a long time, it will begin to taste slightly sweet. The tongue, a strong and agile muscle, plays the role of the master coordinator in the mouth. It skillfully manipulates the food, moving it between the teeth for grinding, mixing it with saliva, and then, when the time is right, it initiates the act of swallowing, pushing the bolus to the back of the throat to continue its journey. This first stage is a gentle, thoughtful preparation, a process of breaking down and softening that prepares the outside world for its slow, alchemical journey into the inner self. Once the food has been chewed and softened in the mouth, the act of swallowing initiates the next stage of its journey. The soft bolus is pushed to the back of the throat, into the pharynx, a passageway shared by both the digestive and respiratory systems. For a brief moment, a small leaf-shaped flap of cartilage called the epiglottis swings down to cover the entrance to the windpipe, ensuring that the food travels down the correct path. This path is the esophagus, a long muscular tube that connects the throat to the stomach. It is about 10 inches long and runs down through the chest, behind the heart and lungs. The esophagus is not a passive open chute. It doesn't rely on gravity to move food along. Instead, it is an active participant in the journey, a soft muscular river that gently and rhythmically guides its contents downward. The walls of the esophagus are lined with smooth muscle, the tireless, involuntary muscle we met in a previous chapter. As soon as the bolus enters the esophagus, these muscles begin a series of coordinated wave-like contractions. A ring of muscle behind the bolus squeezes, while the muscle in front of it relaxes. This creates a gentle, propulsive wave that pushes the food steadily along. This rhythmic process is called peristalsis. It is a slow, steady, and powerful force. It is what allows you to swallow even if you are lying down or upside down. The journey down the esophagus is a quiet one, taking only about 4 to 8 seconds. The inner lining of the tube secretes mucus, which lubricates the pathway, ensuring the bolus glides smoothly and easily on its way. At the very bottom of the esophagus, there is a ring of muscle called the lower esophageal sphincter. This acts as a valve. It relaxes to allow the food to pass into the stomach, and then it tightens to prevent the stomach's acidic contents from splashing back up. It is the final gateway before the food enters the body's central cauldron. After its short, smooth journey down the esophagus, the bolus of food passes through the sphincter and arrives in a J-shaped muscular organ located in the upper abdomen, the stomach. This is the body's churning cauldron, a place of powerful transformation where the process of digestion takes a dramatic turn. The stomach is a remarkable storage tank. Its walls are arranged in thick folds called rugae, which allow it to expand significantly to hold a meal. But it is much more than a simple holding pouch. The walls of the stomach are composed of 3 powerful layers of smooth muscle, each oriented in a different direction. These muscles allow the stomach to twist, knead, and churn its contents with incredible force. This mechanical action is like a washing machine physically breaking down the food and mixing it thoroughly with the stomach's potent chemical secretions. The inner lining of the stomach is dotted with millions of tiny gastric pits, which lead to glands that produce gastric juice. This is a formidable chemical cocktail. One of its main components is hydrochloric acid. This acid is incredibly strong, giving the stomach a pH between 1.5 and 3.5, which is acidic enough to dissolve iron nails. This harsh environment serves 2 purposes. First, it kills the vast majority of harmful bacteria and pathogens that may have been ingested with the food, acting as a sterilizing chamber. Second, it helps to denature or unfold the complex structures of proteins, making them easier to break down. The other key ingredient in gastric juice is an enzyme called pepsin. Pepsin's job is to begin the chemical digestion of proteins, chopping the long protein chains into smaller pieces. To protect itself from being digested by its own powerful acid and enzymes, the stomach lining secretes a thick, protective layer of mucus. This creates a barrier that keeps the corrosive juices away from the stomach wall. The food may remain in this churning, acidic cauldron for several hours. During this time, it is gradually transformed from a solid mass into a thick, semi-liquid paste called chyme. Once the chyme has reached the right consistency, another sphincter at the bottom of the stomach, the pyloric sphincter, begins to open periodically, releasing small squirts of the chyme into the next stage of the journey, the small intestine. From the acidic cauldron of the stomach, the chyme begins its long and winding journey into what is perhaps the most important part of the digestive tract, the small intestine. Despite its name, the small intestine is not small at all. It is a coiled tube that is nearly 20 feet long in an adult. It is called small only because of its narrow diameter compared to the large intestine. It is here, in this warm, dark, enchanted maze, that the final and most complete stages of digestion and absorption take place. The small intestine is divided into 3 sections. The first, shortest section is the duodenum. This is the busiest part of the intestine, the main chemical workshop. As the acidic chyme enters the duodenum from the stomach, it is immediately neutralized by a bicarbonate-rich fluid secreted by the pancreas. The duodenum also receives a flood of powerful digestive enzymes from the pancreas and a substance called bile from the liver and gallbladder. These substances break down the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates into their smallest possible components: fatty acids, amino acids, and simple sugars. The next 2 sections, the jejunum and the ileum, make up the majority of the small intestine's length. Their primary job is absorption. By this point, the food has been broken down into the tiny nutrient molecules that the body can actually use. Now they must be absorbed from the intestine into the bloodstream. To do this with maximum efficiency, the small intestine has developed a breathtakingly large surface area. The inner wall of the small intestine is not smooth. It is covered in millions of tiny finger-like projections called villi. These villi are like a lush velvety carpet, and they increase the surface area enormously, but the magic doesn't stop there. Each one of these villi is in turn covered in even tinier hair-like projections called microvilli. This is often called the brush border. This combination of folds, villi and microvilli increases the absorptive surface area of the small intestine to be roughly the size of a tennis court, all cleverly folded into your abdomen. The nutrient molecules pass through the thin walls of the villi and are absorbed into the tiny blood capillaries and lymphatic vessels that run through the core of each villus. From here they enter the great river of the bloodstream, ready to be transported to every cell in the body, to be used for energy, growth, and repair. This is the beautiful culmination of the digestive process, the moment when the outside world truly becomes a part of our inner universe. The incredible work of digestion that happens in the small intestine is not accomplished by the intestine alone. It relies on the crucial assistance of 3 accessory organs that act as master alchemists, producing and delivering the potent potions needed for the final transformation of food. These helpful partners are the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. The liver is the largest internal organ in the body, a true metabolic powerhouse with hundreds of functions. In the context of digestion, its primary role is to produce bile. Bile is a complex greenish-yellow fluid that acts as a fat emulsifier. Fats and oils do not mix well with the watery environment of the digestive tract. They tend to clump together in large globules, which makes it very difficult for enzymes to break them down. Bile works like a biological detergent. It breaks down the large fat globules into much smaller droplets, a process called emulsification. This dramatically increases the surface area of the fat, allowing the fat-digesting enzymes to work much more effectively. The gallbladder is a small, pear-shaped organ tucked neatly under the liver. Its job is to act as a storage pouch for the bile produced by the liver. It concentrates the bile, making it more potent. When fat is detected in the small intestine, a hormonal signal is sent to the gallbladder, telling it to contract and release its stored bile into the duodenum to begin its work. The pancreas is a long, slender gland that sits behind the stomach. It has 2 major roles, one hormonal and one digestive. Its digestive role is to produce a powerful cocktail of digestive enzymes known as pancreatic juice. This juice contains enzymes to break down all 3 major types of nutrients. Pancreatic amylase continues the breakdown of carbohydrates that began in the mouth. Trypsin and other proteases continue the breakdown of proteins that began in the stomach. And most importantly, lipase is the enzyme that breaks down the emulsified fat droplets into fatty acids and glycerol that can be absorbed. The pancreas also produces the sodium bicarbonate that neutralizes the stomach acid, creating the perfect environment for these enzymes to work. Together, these 3 alchemists provide the essential chemical tools that allow the small intestine to unlock the nourishment hidden within our food. After the long, winding journey through the small intestine, where all the valuable nutrients have been carefully extracted and absorbed, the remaining material passes into the final section of the digestive tract, the large intestine. This is a wider, shorter tube, about 5 feet long, that frames the small intestine on 3 sides. Its role is not one of digestion, but of conservation and final processing. The material that enters the large intestine is mostly indigestible food matter, such as fibre, along with a large amount of water. The primary and most vital function of the large intestine is to act as a water reclamation centre. As the material slowly moves through this tube, a process that can take 12 to 24 hours, the cells lining the large intestine absorb most of the remaining water, returning it to the bloodstream. This is a crucial act of conservation, preventing the body from losing excessive water and becoming dehydrated. The large intestine also absorbs important salts and electrolytes that are dissolved in the water. As the water is gradually removed, the remaining indigestible waste becomes more solid, forming what we know as feces. This waste material is composed of things like dietary fibre, which our bodies cannot break down, as well as old shed cells from the lining of the digestive tract, and a very large amount of bacteria, which we will explore next. The large intestine temporarily stores this waste in its final section, the rectum. As the rectum fills, it stretches, which sends a nerve signal to the brain, creating the urge for a bowel movement. The elimination of this waste through the anus is the final act of the digestive journey, a process of releasing what is no longer needed. Having carefully and efficiently extracted everything of value from the food we have eaten, it is the quiet, humble, and essential completion of the alchemical cycle. As we journey through the digestive system, it is important to realise that we are not travelling alone. Our digestive tract, particularly the large intestine, is home to a vast and bustling ecosystem of trillions of microorganisms, including bacteria, viruses, and fungi. This teeming community is known as the gut microbiome, and it is like a vast secret garden living within us. There are more microbial cells in your gut than there are human cells in your entire body. This is not an infection or an invasion. It is a profound symbiotic relationship, a partnership that is essential for our health and well-being. For a long time, the role of these tiny residents was poorly understood, but we now know that they are vital partners in our health. One of their most important roles is to help us with digestion. These bacteria have the enzymes needed to break down certain substances that our own bodies cannot, most notably certain types of dietary fibre. As they ferment these fibres, they produce beneficial compounds as byproducts, such as short-chain fatty acids. These fatty acids are an important source of energy for the cells lining our large intestine, and they have wide-ranging anti-inflammatory effects throughout the body. Our gut bacteria are also little vitamin factories. They synthesize several essential vitamins that we cannot produce on our own, including vitamin K, which is crucial for blood clotting, and several B vitamins such as biotin and folate. Perhaps one of their most critical roles is in supporting our immune system. The gut is a major frontier between our inner and outer worlds, and a healthy microbiome helps to train and regulate our immune system. The presence of a diverse community of beneficial bacteria helps to prevent harmful pathogenic bacteria from taking hold, a phenomenon known as competitive exclusion. They help to maintain the integrity of the gut lining, forming a strong barrier that prevents unwanted substances from leaking into the bloodstream. This inner garden is a delicate ecosystem. Its health and diversity are influenced by our diet, our stress levels, and our environment. A diet rich in diverse plant fibres helps to nourish a healthy and varied microbiome. This community of silent microscopic helpers is a fundamental part of who we are, a living testament to the fact that our bodies are not isolated fortresses, but complex ecosystems, interconnected with the world around us and within us. And so our journey through the alchemist's laboratory comes to a gentle close. We have followed the path of food from the first welcoming bite in the mouth to the final release of what is no longer needed. It is a journey of profound transformation, a process that is both mechanically powerful and chemically subtle. Let us take a moment to reflect on the miracle that has unfolded. We begin with a simple meal, an apple, a piece of bread, a glass of milk. These are objects of the outside world, composed of complex molecules that our bodies cannot directly use. Through the coordinated actions of our teeth, our stomach muscles, our enzymes, and our microbial partners, these complex structures are gently and systematically deconstructed. They are broken down into their most fundamental universal building blocks: simple sugars, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals. These tiny molecules are then absorbed through the vast velvety lining of the small intestine, crossing the boundary from the outside world into our own bloodstream. From there, they are carried on the river of life to every single one of our trillions of cells. A sugar molecule from the apple you ate might be taken up by a neuron in your brain to fuel a thought or a dream. An amino acid from the milk might be used by a muscle cell to repair and rebuild itself as you sleep. A fatty acid might become part of a new cell membrane, the gentle, watchful gatekeeper of a cell in your liver. This is the ultimate act of connection. The digestive system is the bridge that allows the outer world to peacefully and intimately become the inner self. It is the quiet, daily alchemy that turns sunlight, soil and water, captured in the form of food, into the very energy that powers your heartbeat, the substance that builds your body, and the fuel that allows you to exist. It is a silent, wondrous process that asks nothing of you but to provide the raw materials and then to rest as it performs its magic. Having explored how we draw nourishment and energy from the world, we now turn our attention to the silent, invisible network that patrols our inner landscape, protecting its peace and balance from unseen threats. This is not a system of aggression, but one of profound vigilance and wisdom. Welcome to the guardian network of the immune system. The immune system is not a single organ or location within the body. It is a diffuse and complex network of cells, tissues and organs that work together in a coordinated and beautiful symphony of protection. It is best to imagine it not as an army constantly at war, but as a team of ever-watchful sentinels, of wise gardeners and meticulous housekeepers, constantly patrolling the vast kingdom of the body, maintaining its harmony and cleanliness. These sentinels are everywhere. They travel through the river of your blood and the quiet streams of your lymphatic system. They stand guard in your skin, in the lining of your gut and your respiratory tract, the major frontiers where your inner world meets the outer. They are stationed in specialized organs like the lymph nodes, the spleen, and the thymus gland. They are a decentralized but highly interconnected intelligence network. The primary task of this network is to recognize the difference between self and non-self. Every cell in your body carries a special set of identification markers on its surface, like a unique, personal uniform. The cells of your immune system spend their entire lives learning to recognize this uniform, to know implicitly what belongs in the kingdom. Their second task is then to identify anything that is not wearing the correct uniform. This could be a non-self invader, like a bacterium, a virus, or a fungus. It could also be a self cell that has gone wrong, like a cancerous cell that has stopped obeying the body's rules, or a cell that has been damaged or is dying and needs to be cleared away. When one of these sentinels encounters something suspicious, it doesn't immediately launch a chaotic attack. It begins a process of communication. It sends out chemical messenger signals called cytokines to alert other immune cells and coordinate a response. The response is tailored to the specific threat. It is a system of immense intelligence and precision, designed not for destruction, but for the restoration of balance and peace. As you rest, this silent, vigilant network is on duty, a quiet, reassuring presence that allows your body to remain a safe and sacred sanctuary. The guardian network of the immune system operates with two distinct but beautifully coordinated strategies. Think of them as the two arms of the body's defense. The first is the innate immune system, and the second is the adaptive immune system. The innate immune system is our ancient, inherited, and immediate line of defense. It is the body's first responders. It is non-specific, meaning it doesn't recognize particular pathogens, but rather general features that are common to many invaders. It is always on, ready to act in a matter of minutes or hours. The components of the innate immune system include your physical barriers, like the skin and the mucous membranes that line your airways and gut. These barriers are the kingdom's first walls. If these walls are breached, the cellular players of the innate system spring into action. These include the phagocytes, the eating cells like macrophages and neutrophils, which we will meet next. They recognize common patterns on the surface of bacteria and immediately begin to engulf and destroy them. The innate system also includes inflammation, the familiar response of redness, swelling, heat, and pain, which is a process designed to rush more immune cells and resources to a site of injury or infection. The innate response is fast, broad, and powerful, but it has no memory. It responds to a threat the same way every time it encounters it. The adaptive immune system is the second arm of defense. It is a more recent evolutionary development, and it is a system of breathtaking specificity and intelligence. This is the body's special forces, its team of elite specialists. The adaptive immune system is specific. It can recognize a particular, unique feature of a single pathogen, like a specific strain of the flu virus. It is slower to respond the first time it encounters a new threat, often taking several days to mount a full response. But its most remarkable feature is that it has memory. The key players in the adaptive system are the lymphocytes, the B cells and T cells. When these cells are activated by a specific pathogen, they not only work to clear the current infection, but some of them also transform into long-lived memory cells. These memory cells will remain in your body for years, sometimes for a lifetime. If you are ever exposed to the same pathogen again, these memory cells will recognize it instantly and launch a response that is so swift and so powerful that you may never even feel sick. This is the very basis of immunity and the principle behind how vaccines work. These two systems, the fast and general first responders and the slow but wise specialist with perfect memory, work in constant communication to provide a complete and resilient defense for the body. At the very front line of the immune response, serving as the humble and tireless foot soldiers of the innate immune system, are the phagocytes. The name phagocyte literally means eating cell, and that is a perfect description of their primary role. They are the body's dedicated cleanup crew and first-line defenders, constantly patrolling the tissues and bloodstream for anything that doesn't belong. The most abundant type of phagocyte is the neutrophil. These cells are produced in vast numbers in the bone marrow and circulate in the blood. They are typically the very first immune cells to arrive at the site of an infection or injury. Drawn by chemical distress signals, neutrophils are relentless hunters. When they encounter a bacterium, they have the ability to engulf it completely, drawing it inside their own cell body into a little bubble called a phagosome. Once the invader is trapped inside, the neutrophil releases powerful digestive enzymes and destructive chemicals that completely obliterate the pathogen. In this process, the neutrophil itself is often destroyed. It is an act of selfless sacrifice to protect the whole. The thick, whitish fluid we call pus is largely composed of the remains of these heroic neutrophils that have died in the line of duty. The other major phagocyte is the macrophage. Macrophages are the big eaters. They begin their lives in the bone marrow as monocytes, circulate in the blood for a short time, and then migrate into the body's tissues, where they mature into long-lived macrophages. They can be found in almost every tissue of the body, where they act as resident sentinels. Like neutrophils, they are expert at engulfing and digesting pathogens and cellular debris. They are the garbage collectors that clean up old dying cells and keep the tissues tidy. But macrophages have another, more sophisticated role. They are also what's known as an antigen-presenting cell. After a macrophage digests a pathogen, it takes a small piece of the invader, a fragment called an antigen, and displays it on its own outer surface. It then travels to a nearby lymph node and presents this fragment to the cells of the adaptive immune system, specifically the helper T cells. It is like a scout who has captured an enemy soldier and is now bringing them back to headquarters for interrogation. This act of presentation is the crucial link that activates the slower, more specific adaptive immune response. These humble eating cells are therefore not just soldiers, but also vital messengers that bridge the two arms of our defense. If the phagocytes are the foot soldiers, then the lymphocytes are the intelligence agents, the master strategists, and the living librarians of the immune system. These are the key players of the adaptive immune response, the cells that provide specificity and, most importantly, memory. The two main types of lymphocytes are B cells and T cells. Both B cells and T cells originate from stem cells in the bone marrow. The T cells then travel to a small gland in the chest called the thymus, where they mature. The thymus is like a strict schoolhouse for T cells. It is here that they learn the crucial lesson of how to distinguish between self and non-self. Any T cell that shows the potential to attack the body's own cells is eliminated. Only the ones that can correctly identify foreign threats are allowed to graduate and enter the circulation. B cells, on the other hand, complete their maturation in the bone marrow itself. Once mature, these naive B and T cells circulate through the blood and lymphatic system, waiting patiently in places like the lymph nodes and spleen, ready for a call to action. Each B cell and T cell is exquisitely specific. It is decorated with receptors on its surface that can recognize one, and only one, specific shape of an antigen, the fragment of an invader. There are several types of T cells. Helper T cells are the master coordinators. When they are activated by an antigen-presenting cell like a macrophage, they begin to multiply and release chemical signals, cytokines, that orchestrate the entire immune response. They are the generals giving orders to the other cells. Cytotoxic T cells, or killer T cells, are the assassins. They are specialized to recognize and kill the body's own cells that have been infected with a virus or have become cancerous. They do this by binding to the compromised cell and releasing chemicals that trigger the cell to self-destruct in a process called apoptosis. B cells have a different strategy. When a B cell's receptor binds to its specific antigen, and it receives an activation signal from a helper T cell, it begins to multiply rapidly. Many of these copies mature into plasma cells. These plasma cells are antibody factories, and we will explore their product next. But crucially, both during a B cell and T cell response, some of the activated cells do not fight the current infection. Instead, they become long-lived memory B cells and memory T cells. These are the living records, the librarians that hold the memory of the encounter, ensuring that the next time the kingdom will be ready. Once the B cells have been activated and transformed into plasma cells, they begin their incredible work of producing one of the immune system's most elegant and precise tools, the antibody. Antibodies are tiny, Y-shaped protein molecules that are released in vast numbers into the bloodstream and body fluids. They are not the soldiers that do the killing themselves. Rather, they are the highly specific messengers and markers that identify the enemy for destruction. Each antibody is a perfect match for the antigen that triggered its creation. The two tips of the Y shape form a unique binding site that is precisely complementary to the shape of the antigen, like a key that fits only one lock. The plasma cells produce millions of these identical antibodies, which then circulate throughout the body like a fleet of tiny guided missiles, searching for their specific target. When an antibody encounters its matching antigen on the surface of a pathogen, like a bacterium or a virus, it binds to it tightly. This binding action doesn't kill the pathogen directly, but it neutralizes it and tags it in several ways. First, the binding can neutralize a threat on its own. For example, if antibodies coat the surface of a virus, they can physically block the virus from being able to attach to and enter a body cell, effectively disarming it. Second, the antibodies act as flags, a process called opsonization. The tail of the Y shape is recognizable to phagocytes like macrophages. When a pathogen is coated with antibodies, it is like it has been covered in bright, tasty labels that say, "Eat me." This makes it much easier for the phagocytes to recognize and engulf the invader. Third, the antibodies can activate another part of the innate immune system called the complement system. This is a collection of proteins that circulate in the blood. When antibodies bind to a pathogen, it can trigger these complement proteins to form a complex that punches holes in the membrane of the bacterium, causing it to burst. Antibodies are the beautiful, specific and versatile tools of the adaptive immune response. They are the tangible products of the B cell's wisdom, the silent messengers that translate the memory of an encounter into a direct and powerful defense, ensuring the peace of the body is swiftly restored. As our quiet exploration of the Guardian network concludes, it is important to reframe our understanding of what it means to be healthy. We often think of the immune system in terms of conflict, of battles, wars, and fighting off disease. But a truly healthy immune system is better understood not as a state of constant war, but as a state of profound inner peace and balance. Health is not the absence of microbes, it is the presence of harmony. Your body is and always will be teeming with a multitude of organisms. A healthy immune system is one that has the wisdom to know which ones are friends, which are harmless passers-by, and which are potential threats. It is a system that is not overly aggressive or trigger-happy, which can lead to allergies and autoimmune diseases where the body mistakenly attacks itself. Instead, it is a system characterized by tolerance, surveillance, and precise, measured responses. The true goal of the immune system is not to create a sterile, empty environment, but to maintain a state of dynamic equilibrium, a peaceful homeostasis. It is the quiet confidence of a well-guarded kingdom. The sentinels are always walking the walls, the librarians are always maintaining their records, and the cleanup crews are always keeping the streets tidy. But most of the time, their work is silent, preventative, and goes completely unnoticed. This inner peace allows the rest of your body to flourish. When the immune system is in a state of balance, it allows your resources to be used for other vital processes, for digestion, for thought, for repair, and for rest. As you lie here, drifting into sleep, you're providing your immune system with the perfect conditions to do its restorative work. During sleep, the body can more efficiently produce the cytokines and immune cells it needs for surveillance and healing. So, feel the profound peace of being well. It is a quiet, background hum of wellness, a testament to the trillions of tiny, intelligent decisions and actions being taken on your behalf every single moment. It is the peace that comes from knowing you are profoundly and beautifully protected from within, allowing you to let go and rest completely. From the cellular guardians of the immune system, we now shift our focus to another, more subtle network of communication. This system does not use nerves or cells to fight, but relies on invisible currents of chemical whispers that flow through the river of our blood, gently shaping our growth, our mood, our energy, and our sleep. We are now entering the silent symphony of the endocrine system. While the nervous system is the body's high-speed internet, sending rapid-fire electrical signals for immediate actions, the endocrine system is like the body's postal service. It sends its messages in the form of chemical molecules called hormones. These messages travel more slowly, sent out into the vast circulatory system, but their effects are often much more widespread and longer-lasting. The endocrine system is composed of a series of small, ductless glands that are located throughout the body. These glands are the post offices. They synthesize and store the hormones. When the time is right, they release these hormones directly into the bloodstream. The hormones then travel throughout the entire body, carried on the river of life to every distant tissue and organ. But a hormone does not affect every cell it passes. Each hormone is like a letter written in a specific language, or a key cut in a unique shape. It will only have an effect on cells that have the correct receptor for it. These are the target cells. A receptor is a protein on the cell's surface or inside the cell that is a perfect structural match for the hormone. When the hormone binds to its receptor, it is like a key fitting into a lock. This binding event triggers a specific change inside the target cell. It might instruct the cell to produce a certain enzyme, to divide, or to slow down its activity. This system controls a vast array of the body's slow, gradual processes. It regulates your growth from childhood to adulthood. It controls your metabolism, determining how quickly you use energy. It manages your body's response to long-term stress. It maintains the delicate balance of salt and water in your body, and it guides the rhythmic cycles of life, including the sleep-wake cycle that you're now entering. The endocrine system and the nervous system are not entirely separate. They are deeply intertwined. The brain, particularly a region called the hypothalamus, acts as the master link between the two, translating nerve signals into hormonal ones. Together, these two great communication networks coordinate all the functions of the body, from the fastest reflex to the slowest cycle of life, ensuring everything works in perfect silent harmony. Suspended from the base of the brain, nestled in a small protective pocket of bone, is a tiny, pea-sized gland of immense importance. This is the pituitary gland, and it is often called the master gland of the endocrine system. While it is not the ultimate controller, it takes its orders from the hypothalamus in the brain, it acts as the crucial intermediary, the foreman that directs the activities of many of the other endocrine glands throughout the body. The pituitary gland is divided into two distinct parts, the anterior, front lobe, and the posterior, back lobe, each with its own function. The posterior pituitary is actually an extension of the brain. It doesn't produce its own hormones, but rather stores and releases two hormones that are made in the hypothalamus. One of these is antidiuretic hormone, ADH, which travels to the kidneys and tells them to conserve water, which is vital for maintaining the body's hydration. The other is oxytocin, a hormone involved in social bonding and a variety of other functions. The anterior pituitary is the true manufacturing hub of the master gland. It produces and releases a whole host of hormones that act as messengers to other glands. Think of these as tropic hormones, because their target is another endocrine gland. For example, the anterior pituitary produces thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH. TSH travels through the blood to the thyroid gland in the neck and tells it to release its own hormones. It produces adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, which travels to the adrenal glands on top of the kidneys and instructs them to release their stress hormones. It also produces hormones that stimulate the reproductive organs. One of the most famous hormones produced by the anterior pituitary is growth hormone, GH. This hormone is essential for our growth during childhood and adolescence, stimulating the growth of bones and muscles, but it continues to play an important role throughout our lives, promoting protein synthesis and tissue repair. The largest pulse of growth hormone is released during the deep stages of non-REM sleep. This is one of the profound reasons why sleep is so restorative. As you rest, your pituitary gland is silently releasing this powerful healing substance, helping to mend the wear and tear of the day. This tiny gland, hidden at the core of your head, is a powerful conductor of your body's long-term health and rhythm. Located in the front of your neck, wrapped around the windpipe just below the Adam's apple, is a small butterfly-shaped gland called the thyroid. This gland is the body's master regulator of metabolism. It sets the pace of your internal rhythm, determining how quickly and efficiently your cells convert fuel into energy. The thyroid gland produces two main hormones, which it secretes into the bloodstream. These hormones, often collectively referred to as thyroid hormone, travel to virtually every cell in the body. When they bind to their receptors, they essentially turn up the thermostat of the cell. They increase the rate of cellular respiration in the mitochondria, the gentle power plants we visited in our first chapter. This means that the cell burns through its fuel, glucose and fats, at a faster rate, releasing more energy in the form of both ATP and heat. The thyroid, therefore, plays a crucial role in maintaining your basal metabolic rate, the amount of energy your body uses when you're at complete rest. It influences your heart rate, your body temperature, and how quickly you digest your food. It is essential for the normal growth and development of the brain, bones, and muscles, especially in children. The activity of the thyroid is carefully controlled by the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus in the brain. The hypothalamus releases a hormone that tells the pituitary to release thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH. TSH then tells the thyroid to release its hormones. If the levels of thyroid hormone in the blood get too high, this sends a signal back to the brain to slow down the release of TSH. This is a classic negative feedback loop, a beautiful self-regulating system that keeps your metabolic rhythm in a state of perfect balance. As you rest now, your metabolic rate naturally slows down, a gentle gearing down of your internal engine, guided in part by the quiet rhythmic wisdom of this small butterfly-shaped gland. Resting like little caps on top of each of your kidneys are the two adrenal glands. Each gland is a small but powerful factory, responsible for producing hormones that help the body manage stress and maintain balance. Each adrenal gland is actually two glands in one, an outer layer and an inner core, each producing different types of hormones. The inner part, called the adrenal medulla, is closely connected to the sympathetic nervous system. It is the gland of immediate action. When you're faced with a sudden short-term stressor, a moment of fright or intense excitement, the adrenal medulla releases the famous fight-or-flight hormones, adrenaline, also called epinephrine, and noradrenaline. These hormones are dumped into the bloodstream and have immediate widespread effects. They increase your heart rate and blood pressure, dilate your airways, and mobilize a quick burst of energy by causing the liver to release glucose. They are the hormones of alertness and peak performance, designed to get you through a crisis. The outer layer of the gland, the adrenal cortex, produces a different set of hormones that help the body deal with longer-term stress. These hormones are called corticosteroids. One of the most important of these is cortisol. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, but its role is much more complex. It helps the body to manage long-term challenges by regulating metabolism, controlling inflammation, and influencing blood pressure. It ensures you have a steady supply of energy by raising blood sugar levels. While cortisol is essential for life, chronically high levels due to long-term stress can have negative effects on the body. However, cortisol is not just about stress. It also has a natural daily rhythm. Your cortisol levels are naturally highest in the morning, shortly after you wake up. This helps to give you the energy and alertness you need to start your day. The levels then gradually decline throughout the day, reaching their lowest point in the middle of the night, which helps you to fall asleep and stay asleep. As you lie here, resting peacefully, your body's production of cortisol is at its nadir, at its quietest point in the cycle, contributing to the profound sense of calm that is allowing you to drift away. We revisit now an organ we met in our exploration of the digestive system, the pancreas. Tucked behind the stomach, this organ truly lives a double life. while part of it is busy producing digestive enzymes. Small clusters of cells scattered throughout the pancreas, known as the islets of Langerhans, are performing a vital endocrine function. They are the body's master regulators of blood sugar. The balance of glucose, or sugar, in our blood is critically important. Glucose is the primary fuel for all of our cells, especially the brain. If the levels get too high or too low, it can cause serious problems. The pancreas maintains this delicate balance using two opposing hormones, insulin and glucagon. When you eat a meal and the carbohydrates are broken down and absorbed, the level of glucose in your blood begins to rise. This rise in blood sugar is sensed by special cells in the pancreas called beta cells. In response, the beta cells release the hormone insulin into the bloodstream. Insulin acts like a gentle universal key. It travels throughout the body and binds to receptors on the surface of most of your cells, particularly muscle, fat, and liver cells. This binding action unlocks the cells, opening up special glucose channels in their membranes. This allows the glucose to move out of the bloodstream and into the cells, where it can be used immediately for energy. Insulin also signals the liver and muscles to take any excess glucose and store it for later use in a compact form called glycogen. Through these actions, insulin effectively lowers the level of sugar in your blood, bringing it back down to a healthy, balanced range. On the other hand, if you haven't eaten for a while and your blood sugar levels begin to drop, a different set of pancreatic cells, the alpha cells, spring into action. They release the hormone glucagon. Glucagon travels to the liver and acts as the key to the pantry. It signals the liver to break down its stored glycogen and release the glucose back into the bloodstream, raising your blood sugar levels to ensure your brain and other tissues always have the fuel they need. This beautiful push and pull dance between insulin and glucagon is a perfect example of the body's self-regulating wisdom, a silent symphony that ensures your internal energy supply is always steady and calm. Deep within the geometric centre of the brain lies a tiny pine-cone-shaped gland called the pineal gland. For centuries, philosophers described it as the seat of the soul. While its function may not be quite so mystical, it is responsible for producing a hormone that is profoundly connected to the state you are now entering. This is the hormone melatonin, the body's own gentle lullaby, the chemical messenger of darkness and rest. The production of melatonin is entirely governed by the cycle of light and dark in our environment. The process begins in our eyes. Special light-sensitive cells in the retina, which are separate from the rods and cones we use for vision, detect the ambient light level. They are particularly sensitive to the blue light of daytime. This information is sent along a nerve pathway from the eyes to a tiny region in the hypothalamus of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. The SCN is the body's master clock. It is a cluster of about 20,000 neurons that generates our circadian rhythms, the near 24-hour cycles that govern everything from our body temperature to our alertness levels. During the day, when the SCN receives signals of bright light from the eyes, it sends an inhibitory signal to the pineal gland, telling it not to produce melatonin. It is essentially telling the body, it is daytime, be awake. However, as the sun sets and the ambient light begins to fade, the signal from the eyes to the SCN weakens. The SCN then removes its inhibitory brake on the pineal gland. As darkness falls, the pineal gland is freed to begin its work. It starts to secrete melatonin into the bloodstream. Melatonin does not force you to sleep in the way a sleeping pill might. Instead, it acts as a gentle facilitator, a quiet signal to the rest of the body that the time for rest has arrived. It is a darkness signal. As melatonin levels rise in the evening, you naturally begin to feel less alert and more sleepy. It helps to lower your body temperature slightly and to calm down other bodily processes, creating the perfect physiological conditions for sleep to occur. The levels of melatonin typically peak in the middle of the night, during your deepest sleep, and then they begin to fall as the morning approaches. The return of light in the morning then signals the pineal gland to stop production, helping you to wake up and feel alert for the new day. This beautiful, light-driven cycle is one of the most fundamental rhythms of our being, the body's own perfect natural clock, gently guiding you now into the peaceful darkness of sleep. As we conclude our journey through the endocrine system, let us pause to appreciate the profound elegance of this silent network. We have visited the master gland in the brain, the metabolic regulator in the neck, the stress managers atop the kidneys, and the sugar balancer in the abdomen. Each of these glands, and the many others we have not mentioned, works without our conscious awareness, releasing its chemical whispers into the river of our blood. These hormones are the invisible conductors of our life's long, slow rhythms. They are the force that guided our growth, the ebb and flow that governs our daily energy, and the gentle tide that pulls us towards sleep each night. Unlike the nervous system's rapid-fire messages, the endocrine system speaks in a slower, more resonant tone, creating changes that are deep, pervasive, and lasting. What is most beautiful is the harmony in which they all work. The glands are in constant communication with each other and with the brain, using intricate feedback loops to ensure that the level of each hormone is perfectly balanced. It is a system of exquisite self-regulation, a silent symphony where each instrument knows exactly when to play and when to be silent, all to maintain the perfect, harmonious state of homeostasis. As you lie here, on the edge of sleep, this symphony is playing its softest, most gentle melody. The hormones of action and alertness have faded into the background. The hormones of rest, repair, and calm have taken centre stage. You do not need to do anything to direct this music. Your only task is to listen to the quiet and to allow this gentle, internal lullaby to carry you completely into a state of profound and peaceful rest, a state that prepares us to consider how we perceive the world we will wake to. Having explored the deep and silent inner workings of our body, we now turn our focus outward. Our journey brings us to the exquisite and delicate instruments that allow our private internal universe to perceive the magnificent beauty of the external world. We are here to explore the wondrous windows of the sensory system. Of all our senses, sight is perhaps the one we rely on most to navigate and understand our world. The organ responsible for this incredible feat is the eye, and it is not a simple camera, but a living dynamic instrument designed for the delicate art of gathering light. The eye is a beautiful sphere, nestled safely within the bony orbit of the skull. Its outer wall is a tough, white, protective layer called the sclera. At the very front of the eye, this tough layer becomes a transparent dome-shaped window called the cornea. The cornea is the first and most powerful lens of the eye. As light from the world enters the eye, it is the cornea that does most of the initial focusing, bending the light rays so that they will converge at the back of the eye. Just behind the cornea is a chamber filled with a watery fluid called the aqueous humor. Floating in this fluid is the structure that gives our eyes their colour, the iris. The iris is a ring of muscle. In its centre is a black opening called the pupil. The iris is the eye's aperture. Its job is to control the amount of light that enters the deeper parts of the eye. In bright light, the iris constricts, making the pupil smaller to limit the amount of light. In dim light, the iris dilates, making the pupil larger to let as much light in as possible. It is a constant, automatic adjustment to the world's changing brightness. The light that passes through the pupil then travels through the lens. The lens is a remarkable, transparent, flexible structure. Unlike the cornea, whose shape is fixed, the lens can change its shape. Tiny muscles attached to the lens can contract or relax, causing the lens to become thicker or thinner. This process, called accommodation, is what allows us to fine-tune our focus, to shift our gaze from a distant mountain to the words on a page. It is the eye's autofocus mechanism. After passing through the lens, the light travels through the large central cavity of the eye, which is filled with a clear, jelly-like substance called the vitreous humor. This gel helps the eye to maintain its spherical shape. Finally, after this long journey, the focused light lands on the delicate, light-sensitive screen at the very back of the eye, the retina. It is here that the magic of sight truly begins. We have followed the path of light as it is gathered and focused by the cornea and the lens. The final destination of this light is the retina, the thin, delicate layer of tissue that lines the back of the eyeball. If the eye is a camera, the retina is the film or the digital sensor. It is here that the light energy from the outside world is converted into the electrical language of the nervous system. The retina is a part of the central nervous system. It is essentially an outcropping of the brain. It is composed of several layers of specialized nerve cells. The most important of these are the photoreceptor cells, the cells that are actually sensitive to light. There are two types of these cells, which we will explore next, the rods and the cones. When light strikes a photoreceptor cell, it triggers a chemical reaction within the cell. This chemical reaction in turn generates a tiny electrical signal. The image that is projected onto the retina by the lens is actually upside down and reversed from left to right. It is the brain's job later on to flip this image so that we perceive the world as being upright. The very centre of the retina contains a small specialised area called the fovea. This tiny spot is densely packed with cone cells and is responsible for our sharpest, most detailed colour vision. When you look directly at something to see it clearly, you are moving your eye so that the image falls directly onto the fovea. The electrical signals generated by the millions of rods and cones are not sent directly to the brain. First, they are processed by other layers of neurons within the retina itself. These cells gather and consolidate the signals, performing a kind of initial image processing. They help to sharpen edges, detect contrast, and perceive motion. After this initial processing, the signals are sent to the ganglion cells, whose long axons bundle together to form a large cable that exits the back of the eye. This cable is the optic nerve. The point where the optic nerve leaves the eye has no photoreceptors, creating a natural blind spot in our vision. We don't notice this blind spot because our brain cleverly fills in the missing information. The optic nerve is the great highway that carries all of this processed visual information from the eye to the brain, where the intricate and wonderful act of seeing will finally take place. The retina's ability to convert light into neural signals is performed by two remarkable types of photoreceptor cells, the rods and the cones. These two types of cells work in partnership, each specialised for a different kind of vision, allowing us to see the world in both its vibrant sunlit glory and its soft, shadowy mystery. The cones are the artists of our vision. They are responsible for our perception of colour and for our ability to see fine detail. There are about 6 to 7 million cones in each eye, and they are most densely concentrated in the fovea, the centre of the retina. There are 3 types of cone cells, each one containing a slightly different pigment that is sensitive to a different wavelength of light. One type is most sensitive to blue light, another to green, and a third to red. Our perception of the entire, rich spectrum of colour is created in the brain by comparing the relative levels of stimulation of these 3 types of cones. The cones require bright light to function properly, which is why it is difficult to see colours clearly in a dimly lit room. They are the cells of daytime vision, providing the sharp, colourful picture of the world we are most familiar with. The rods are the guardians of our night vision. They are far more numerous than the cones, with over 100 million in each eye. They are located primarily in the periphery of the retina, outside the fovea. Rods are incredibly sensitive to light. They are capable of detecting even a single photon, the smallest possible particle of light. This makes them essential for seeing in low-light conditions. However, rods do not distinguish between different wavelengths of light, so they cannot see in colour. The world they show us is one of blacks, whites, and shades of grey. They also provide less detailed vision than the cones. This is why, in a very dark room, you can often see an object more clearly out of the corner of your eye than by looking directly at it, as you're using the more sensitive rods in your peripheral vision. Together, these 2 types of cells provide us with a wonderfully versatile visual system, able to adapt from the brightest sunny day to the softest moonlit night. From the silent world of light, we now turn our attention to the perception of vibrations that travel through the air. Our instrument for this sense is the ear, a marvel of biological engineering that gathers these vibrations, amplifies them, and translates them into the rich experience of sound. The ear is divided into 3 distinct regions: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The journey of sound begins with the part of the ear we can see, the outer ear. The visible, fleshy part is called the pinna, or auricle. Its unique sculpted shape of curves and folds is not just for decoration. It acts like a satellite dish, a funnel designed to catch the sound waves travelling through the air and to direct them into the ear canal. It also helps us to determine the direction a sound is coming from. The sound waves then travel down the ear canal, a short tube that leads to the middle ear. The ear canal is lined with skin that contains special glands that produce cerumen, or earwax. This wax helps to trap dust and other small particles, preventing them from reaching the delicate structures deeper inside. The canal also helps to amplify certain sound frequencies. At the end of the ear canal, we reach the boundary of the middle ear, the tympanic membrane, more commonly known as the eardrum. The eardrum is a thin, taut, cone-shaped membrane of skin. It is incredibly sensitive. When the travelling pressure waves of sound strike the eardrum, they cause it to vibrate. The eardrum vibrates in sympathy with the sound, moving back and forth at the same frequency as the sound wave. A low-pitched sound will cause it to vibrate slowly, while a high-pitched sound will cause it to vibrate very rapidly. It is here that the energy of the sound wave is transferred from the air into a mechanical vibration in a solid structure, the first crucial step in the process of hearing. Once the eardrum has begun to vibrate, the sound's journey continues into the small, air-filled chamber of the middle ear. The primary task of the middle ear is to take the gentle vibrations of the eardrum and amplify them, making them strong enough to be detected by the inner ear. This amplification is performed by a set of 3 tiny connected bones, the smallest bones in the entire human body. Collectively, they are called the ossicles. The first of these bones is the malleus, or the hammer. One end of the malleus is attached directly to the centre of the eardrum. As the eardrum vibrates, the malleus vibrates along with it. The head of the malleus is connected to the second bone, the incus, or the anvil. The incus acts as a bridge, transmitting the vibrations from the malleus to the third and final bone, the stapes, or the stirrup. The base of the stapes, called the footplate, fits perfectly into a small membrane-covered opening called the oval window. The oval window is the gateway to the fluid-filled inner ear. This chain of 3 tiny bones acts as a clever lever system. Because of the way they are arranged, they amplify the force of the vibrations as they are transmitted from the large surface of the eardrum to the small surface of the oval window. This concentration of force is essential, because the inner ear is filled with fluid, and it takes much more energy to create waves in a fluid than it does in air. The ossicles provide the mechanical advantage needed to bridge this gap, amplifying the pressure of the sound vibrations by about 20 times. The middle ear also connects to the back of the throat via a small tube called the eustachian tube. This tube's job is to equalize the air pressure in the middle ear with the pressure of the outside world. When you yawn or swallow and your ears pop, that is your eustachian tube opening to balance the pressure. This ensures the eardrum can vibrate freely and efficiently. Having been amplified by the tiny bones of the middle ear, the mechanical vibrations finally arrive at the oval window, the entrance to the inner ear. It is here, within a beautiful snail shell-shaped structure called the cochlea, that the physical vibrations are magically translated into the electrical language of the nervous system. The cochlea is a hollow, bony tube that is coiled into a spiral. It is filled with fluid. When the stapes pushes on the oval window, it creates pressure waves in this fluid, much like tapping on the surface of a pond creates ripples. These pressure waves travel through the spiral chambers of the cochlea. Running through the centre of the cochlea is a flexible partition called the basilar membrane. Resting on top of this membrane is the true organ of hearing, the organ of Corti. The organ of Corti contains thousands of tiny delicate sensory cells called hair cells. These are not like the hair on your head. They are specialised cells with tiny, bristle-like projections sticking up from their surface. As the pressure waves travel through the cochlear fluid, they cause the basilar membrane to vibrate. The membrane is not uniform. It is wider and more flexible at the apex of the spiral and narrower and stiffer at the base near the oval window. This design is ingenious. High-frequency, high-pitched sounds cause the stiff base of the membrane to vibrate, while low-frequency, low-pitched sounds cause the flexible apex to vibrate. The cochlea essentially acts as a frequency analyzer, uncoiling the complex sound wave into its component pitches. When a particular section of the basilar membrane vibrates, it causes the hair cells in that region to move. The tiny bristles on top of the hair cells are bent against an overlying membrane. This bending action opens up tiny ion channels in the hair cells. This triggers the release of chemical signals, which in turn generate an electrical impulse in the auditory nerve fibres that are connected to the base of the hair cells. The pitch of the sound is determined by which hair cells are stimulated, and the loudness of the sound is determined by how strongly they are stimulated. This electrical signal then travels along the auditory nerve to the brain, where it is finally interpreted as the rich and meaningful experience of sound. Our sensory journey now brings us to a sense that is both ancient and profoundly evocative, our sense of smell, or olfaction. Unlike sight and hearing, which detect waves of energy, smell is a chemical sense. It is the detection of tiny volatile molecules that are floating in the air we breathe. The process begins high up in our nasal cavity, in a small patch of specialized tissue called the olfactory epithelium. This patch is home to millions of olfactory receptor neurons. These are the nerve cells that can actually smell. Sticking down from these neurons into the layer of mucus that lines the nasal cavity are tiny hair-like cilia. These cilia are covered in receptor proteins. Each olfactory receptor neuron is specialized. It has one specific type of receptor protein on its cilia that can bind to one specific type of odor molecule, or a small group of related molecules. It's like having millions of tiny, highly specialized locks, waiting for the right molecular key to drift by on the air. When you inhale, odor molecules are drawn up into your nasal cavity and dissolve in the mucus. They then bind to their matching receptor proteins on the cilia. This binding triggers an electrical signal in the olfactory neuron. This is the moment of detection. What is truly unique about the sense of smell is the direct path it takes to the brain. The axons from these olfactory neurons pass directly up through a porous plate of bone at the top of the nasal cavity and synapse in a structure called the olfactory bulb, which sits at the very front of the brain. From the olfactory bulb, the information is sent to several other brain regions, including, most importantly, the limbic system. The limbic system is the brain's emotional and memory center. This direct and ancient connection is why smells can trigger such powerful and immediate memories and emotions, more so than any other sense. The scent of baking cookies might instantly transport you back to your childhood kitchen, a testament to the deep primal link between the world of scent and the landscape of our memory. As we conclude our gentle tour of the sensory windows, let us reflect on a profound and beautiful truth. The vibrant, colourful, sound-filled world that we experience is not something that is simply transmitted into our heads. It is a story that is actively and continuously woven by our brain. The eyes do not see. They gather patterns of light. The ears do not hear. They detect vibrations in the air. The skin does not feel. It registers pressure, temperature, and texture. These exquisite organs are the body's data collectors. They are the translators that convert the physical energy and chemistry of the outside world into the universal electrical language of the nervous system. This stream of raw electrical data is then sent along the sensory nerves to the brain, and it is here, in the silent, dark theatre of the mind, that the true miracle of perception occurs. The visual cortex at the back of the brain takes the patterns of light and constructs an image of a face. The auditory cortex in the temporal lobe takes the patterns of vibration and interprets them as music, or the sound of my voice. The somatosensory cortex takes the signals from the skin and creates the feeling of a soft blanket. The brain does not just passively receive this information. It actively interprets it, filters it, and compares it to past experiences and expectations to create a seamless and meaningful reality. The world you perceive is a beautiful, personalized construction, a collaboration between the physical reality outside and the unique neural landscape within you. And so, as you drift now into the quiet inner world of sleep, you can let go of the external world of sensation. You can allow these windows to the world to close for a while. You can trust that your brain, the master weaver of your reality, will continue its quiet work, sorting the day's experiences and preparing to once again weave the beautiful story of your world when you awaken. This quiet thought prepares us for our final explorations of the body's systems of cleansing and continuation. As our long and peaceful journey through the body begins to wind down, we turn our attention to the quiet background processes of cleansing and purification. These are the systems that work silently to ensure that the body's pristine internal environment, its inner ocean, remains perfectly balanced and pure. Flowing alongside the great rushing river of our blood circulatory system is another, quieter river system. This is the lymphatic system. It is a slow-moving, one-way network of vessels and organs that plays a crucial role in both fluid balance and immunity. It is the body's gentle sanitation department and a key part of its guardian network. The journey of this other river begins in the tiny spaces between all the cells of your body. As blood flows through the capillaries, a small amount of the watery plasma naturally leaks out into the surrounding tissues. This fluid, now called interstitial fluid, bathes the cells, delivering nutrients and oxygen. While most of this fluid is reabsorbed back into the blood capillaries, some of it is left behind. This is where the lymphatic system begins. All throughout the body's tissues are a network of tiny dead-end vessels called lymphatic capillaries. These capillaries have very permeable walls with overlapping flaps that act as one-way swinging doors. The excess interstitial fluid, along with any proteins, cellular debris or stray bacteria that might be in the tissues, can easily push its way into these lymphatic capillaries. Once inside, this fluid is called lymph. The tiny lymphatic capillaries merge to form larger and larger lymphatic vessels. These vessels are similar to veins. They have thin walls and a series of one-way valves to ensure the lymph fluid keeps moving in one direction, back toward the chest. Unlike the circulatory system, the lymphatic system has no central pump like the heart. The lymph is moved along slowly by the contraction of surrounding skeletal muscles and the rhythmic pressure changes from breathing. This system acts as a vast drainage network, collecting the excess fluid from the tissues and preventing them from swelling, a condition known as edema. But it does more than just drain. As we'll see, it is also a critical highway for the immune system, filtering and purifying this fluid before it is finally returned to the bloodstream, completing its quiet cleansing cycle, as the lymph fluid travels along its slow, one-way journey back toward the heart. Its path is periodically interrupted. The lymphatic vessels lead into small, bean-shaped structures called lymph nodes. These nodes are the gentle filtering stations and the strategic military bases of the immune system. There are hundreds of lymph nodes scattered throughout your body, clustered in areas like your neck, your armpits, and your groin. A lymph node is not just a passive filter, it is a bustling hub of immune activity. The lymph fluid enters the node through several incoming vessels, and then it percolates slowly through a maze-like network of sinuses within the node. This slow passage gives the resident immune cells time to inspect the fluid thoroughly. The lymph node is packed with the guardians we have met before. There are macrophages, the big eaters, which stand ready to engulf and destroy any bacteria, viruses, or cellular debris that might be floating in the lymph. There are also dense collections of the specialized lymphocytes, the B cells and T cells, the intelligence agents of the adaptive immune system. The lymph nodes are the primary sites where immune responses are initiated. Imagine a macrophage in the skin engulfing a bacterium. It might then travel through a lymphatic vessel to the nearest lymph node. There, it will present a piece of the bacterium to a waiting helper T cell. This activation then sounds the alarm. The T cells and B cells in the lymph node that are specific to that particular bacterium will begin to multiply rapidly. This is why, when you have an infection, the lymph nodes in that area may become swollen and tender. That swelling is a sign that your immune system is hard at work, rapidly producing the cells it needs to fight the infection. After being thoroughly filtered and monitored, the clean lymph fluid exits the node through a single outgoing vessel and continues its journey. The lymph nodes are the quiet, wise checkpoints of this other river, ensuring that by the time the fluid is returned to the blood, it has been purified and declared safe. While the lymphatic system cleanses the fluid between our cells, the task of purifying the great river of the blood itself falls to two remarkable, bean-shaped organs located on either side of the spine, just below the rib cage. These are the kidneys, and they are the body's master chemists and purifiers. Every day, your kidneys filter the entire volume of your blood, about 5 litres, more than 30 times over. Each kidney is a marvel of microscopic engineering, containing about 1 million tiny intricate filtering units called nephrons. The nephron is the functional unit of the kidney, and its job is to perform a 2-step process of filtration and reabsorption. The process begins at a structure called the glomerulus, which is a tiny tangled knot of capillaries. Blood enters the glomerulus under high pressure. This pressure forces water, salts, glucose, amino acids, and waste products like urea out of the blood and into a surrounding cup-shaped structure called Bowman's capsule. This filtered fluid is now called filtrate. This first step is non-selective. It is like cleaning out a drawer by simply dumping everything onto the floor. Large things like red blood cells and proteins are left behind in the blood, but everything small is filtered out, including many things the body needs to keep. Now, the second, more intelligent step begins. The filtrate leaves Bowman's capsule and enters a long, winding U-shaped tube called the renal tubule. As the filtrate flows through this tubule, the cells lining the tube begin the crucial work of reabsorption. They are like meticulous sorters, carefully picking through the contents that were dumped on the floor and putting back anything valuable. They actively transport the good stuff, the glucose, the amino acids, the salts, and most of the water, out of the tubule and back into the blood in the capillaries that surround it. This process is incredibly precise. The kidney reabsorbs exactly the right amount of water and salts to maintain the perfect balance in the blood. Whatever is left behind in the tubule is considered waste. This remaining fluid, now concentrated with the metabolic waste product urea and any excess salts, is what we call urine. The urine flows from the millions of nephrons into collecting ducts, which lead to the centre of the kidney and then out through a tube called the ureter, on its way to the bladder. The kidneys are the silent, tireless guardians of our blood's purity and balance. The kidneys are brilliant purifiers, but their genius extends far beyond simply filtering out waste. They're also the master regulators of the body's internal aquatic environment. Their art is the art of balance, specifically the balance of water and salt in our blood and body fluids. This process is called osmoregulation, and it is essential for the health of every cell in our body. Our cells live in a watery world, the interstitial fluid that bathes them. The concentration of dissolved substances like salt in this fluid must be kept within a very narrow, perfect range. If the fluid becomes too dilute, too much water, or too concentrated, not enough water, it can cause the cells to swell up or shrink, which can be disastrous for their function. The kidneys are the primary organ responsible for maintaining this perfect, just right state. They do this by adjusting how much water and salt they reabsorb from the filtrate as it passes through the nephron's tubules. This process is under the elegant control of the endocrine system. A key player is the antidiuretic hormone, ADH, which is released by the pituitary gland in the brain. Imagine you haven't had much to drink and your body is becoming dehydrated. Special sensors in your brain detect that your blood is becoming slightly too concentrated. In response, the brain tells the pituitary to release more ADH. ADH travels to the kidneys and makes the walls of the collecting ducts more permeable to water. This allows more water to be reabsorbed from the filtrate back into the blood. The result is that you produce a smaller volume of more concentrated, darker urine, and your body conserves the water it needs. Conversely, if you drink a large amount of water, your blood becomes more dilute. The brain senses this and reduces the release of ADH. This makes the kidneys' collecting ducts less permeable to water, less water is reabsorbed, and more is left to pass out of the body. The result is a larger volume of clear, dilute urine, as your body gets rid of the excess water. Through this constant, sensitive feedback loop, your kidneys are always fine-tuning the composition of your blood, ensuring that your inner ocean is always at the perfect salinity for life to thrive. After the kidneys have performed their meticulous work of filtration and reabsorption, the resulting waste fluid, urine, leaves the kidneys and begins its journey to the outside world. It trickles down two long, narrow tubes called the ureters, which connect each kidney to a remarkable storage organ located in the pelvis, the urinary bladder. The bladder is a hollow, muscular, and incredibly elastic organ. You can think of it as a patient and resilient holding vessel. Its walls are made of a special type of smooth muscle called the detrusor muscle, and its inner lining is composed of a unique type of tissue that is arranged in folds, much like the stomach. These features allow the bladder to stretch dramatically as it slowly fills with urine, expanding from a small empty pouch to a balloon-like sac capable of holding a significant volume of fluid without a large increase in internal pressure. Urine does not simply flow into the bladder and then leak out. The entry and exit are carefully controlled. The ureters enter the bladder at an angle, creating a natural one-way valve that prevents urine from flowing backward up toward the kidneys. The exit from the bladder into the tube called the urethra that leads to the outside is guarded by two rings of muscle called sphincters. The internal urethral sphincter is made of smooth muscle and is under involuntary control. It remains tightly closed as the bladder fills, preventing leakage. The external urethral sphincter is made of skeletal muscle, which means it is under our voluntary, conscious control. As the bladder fills and its walls stretch, special stretch receptors in the bladder wall send a signal to the spinal cord and then up to the brain. This is what creates the initial sensation, the first gentle awareness that the bladder is becoming full. As it continues to fill, the signals become stronger, creating the urge to urinate. The act of urination itself is a coordinated reflex, where the brain gives the signal for the detrusor muscle of the bladder to contract, while simultaneously commanding both the internal and external sphincters to relax, allowing the urine to be released. It is a simple, efficient, and perfectly coordinated process of storage and release. As our exploration of the body's cleansing systems draws to a close, let us reflect on the profound connection between the physical purity these systems maintain and the mental and emotional cleansing that occurs during the state of rest you are now embracing. The body's wisdom is holistic. Its cycles of renewal echo across every level of our being. Throughout our journey tonight, we have witnessed the quiet, tireless work of purification. We saw the lymphatic system silently sweeping the spaces between our cells, filtering its fluid through the watchful nodes. We saw the kidneys meticulously sifting through our entire blood supply, casting out waste and conserving what is precious. These systems are the housekeepers of our physical selves, working around the clock to ensure our internal environment remains clean, balanced, and serene. In a beautiful parallel, the act of sleep provides a similar cleansing for the mind. As we saw when we explored the brain, sleep is not a passive state. It is a time when the brain actively works to clear out the metabolic byproducts that accumulate during our waking hours of intense mental activity. A special system, sometimes called the glymphatic system, becomes more active during sleep, using the cerebrospinal fluid to flush away these waste products from the brain. But the cleansing is not just chemical. Sleep is also when we process the experiences of the day. The brain sorts through memories, consolidates what is important, and begins to let go of the trivial. It is a time of emotional regulation, where the sharp edges of the day's stresses can be softened. Just as your kidneys release what your body no longer needs, the state of sleep allows your mind to release the mental and emotional clutter that no longer serves you. So, as you let go now, trust in this dual process of purification. Trust that as your physical systems are quietly maintaining their pristine balance, your mind is also being given the sacred space to clear, to reset, and to renew itself. Embrace the purity of this moment, a state of complete and gentle release. In this, our final chapter, our gentle journey arrives at its most profound and mysterious destination. We turn our attention to the remarkable and wondrous systems designed not for the survival of the individual, but for the sacred and miraculous continuation of life itself. We will explore this topic with a sense of quiet, peaceful reverence. Our entire exploration of the human body so far has been a story of maintenance of the incredible systems that work in harmony to sustain a single precious life. The heart beats, the lungs breathe, the kidneys filter, all to keep the individual being in a state of healthy, balanced existence. But there is another layer to our biology, a drive that looks beyond the individual and toward the horizon of the future. This is the story of reproduction, the story of beginnings. The reproductive system is unique among all the body systems. It is not essential for the survival of the individual. A person can live a long and healthy life without it ever being used for its primary purpose. Its function is aimed at a different kind of survival, the survival of the species. It is the system that carries the thread of life from one generation to the next, a biological bridge across the vastness of time. It is a story told in two parts, a beautiful duality that is woven into the very fabric of our biology. The male and female reproductive systems are different in their anatomy, yet they are perfectly complementary, designed to come together to create a new and unique individual. Each system is tasked with a special part of the process. Each produces its own specialized cells and its own guiding hormones. Each is designed to protect and transport its precious genetic cargo. To explore this system is to touch upon one of life's greatest wonders. It is to acknowledge that every single person who has ever lived, and every person who ever will, is the result of this intricate and beautiful biological dance. It connects us all, linking us in an unbroken chain to our most distant ancestors and to the generations that are yet to come. As we gently explore the fundamentals of this system, let us do so with a sense of awe for the profound continuity it represents. The quiet miracle of life's insistence on creating more life. At the very heart of this story of continuity lies the molecule we first met in the quiet library of the cell's nucleus, DNA. Deoxyribonucleic acid is the thread that weaves the entire tapestry of life together across generations. It is the most remarkable information storage system known to existence, a microscopic blueprint of breathtaking elegance and complexity. Imagine a library containing all the instruction manuals needed to build and operate a human being. Now imagine that this entire library is written on two incredibly long, intertwined strands. forming a beautiful spiral staircase, the famous double helix. The steps of this staircase are made of pairs of 4 simple chemical letters, A, T, C, and G. The specific sequence of these letters is the genetic code. A specific segment of this code that contains the instructions for one particular trait or protein is called a gene. Every cell in your body contains a complete copy of this library, coiled tightly into 46 volumes called chromosomes. You inherited 23 of these volumes from your mother and 23 from your father. This is the essence of heredity. The reproductive system's entire, ultimate purpose is to be the faithful guardian and transmitter of this sacred text. The process is one of both preservation and innovation. The system must ensure that the blueprint is copied and passed on with incredible fidelity, so that the essential instructions for building a human are preserved. Yet, the way the blueprints from 2 individuals are combined allows for a new, unique combination of instructions with every new life. This genetic shuffling is what creates the wonderful diversity of the human family. It allows for new traits to emerge, for adaptation, for the slow, grand, and beautiful process of evolution to unfold. As you lie here, every cell in your body holds this precious ancient text. It is a story written in a 4-letter alphabet that connects you to the very dawn of life on this planet. It is the story of your parents, and their parents, and all the ancestors that came before them, a legacy carried forward in the silent spiral dance of this miraculous molecule. The reproductive system is simply the mechanism that life has evolved to ensure this story never ends. The story of a new beginning starts with 2 very special, highly specialized cells. These cells are called gametes, and they are the sole couriers of the genetic blueprint from one generation to the next. All of the other cells in the body, the skin cells, muscle cells, and nerve cells, are called somatic cells. Somatic cells are diploid, meaning they contain the full library of 46 chromosomes. Gametes, however, are different. They are haploid. Through a special type of cell division called meiosis, the number of chromosomes is halved. Each gamete contains only 23 chromosomes, 1 copy of each volume from the genetic library, not 2. They are the 2 halves of a whole story, each waiting for the other to become complete. The female gamete is the ovum, or the egg cell. It is one of the larger cells in the human body, just visible to the naked eye. It is a round, non-moving cell, packed with a rich supply of cytoplasm and nutrients. It carries this precious cargo because, should a new life begin, the ovum must provide all the initial resources and machinery needed for the first few days of development. The ovum is a cell of patient potential, a protected and nourishing world in waiting. The male gamete is the sperm cell or spermatozoon. It is one of the smallest cells in the human body, and its design is a masterpiece of minimalist engineering, built for a single purpose, a long and arduous journey. It consists of 3 parts. The head contains the precious nucleus with its 23 chromosomes, capped with a special enzyme-filled tip called the acrosome, which will help it to penetrate the egg. The midpiece is packed with mitochondria, the gentle power plants, which produce the vast amounts of ATP energy needed to fuel its journey. And the tail, or flagellum, is a long whip-like structure that propels the sperm forward with a powerful swimming motion. These 2 cells, the large, patient and nourishing egg, and the small, streamlined and motile sperm, are the 2 perfect, complementary halves of the story of reproduction. Each carries a unique half of the genetic code, a different shuffling of the ancestral blueprint, ready and waiting for the possibility of coming together to create a new, whole, and utterly unique beginning. The female reproductive system is an architecture of profound potential, a quiet and protected internal world designed to produce the female gamete and, should a new life begin, to be its very first cradle. Its primary organs are located safely within the pelvic cavity. The central organs are the 2 ovaries, small almond-shaped glands that lie on either side of the uterus. The ovaries are the female gonads, and they have 2 main roles. First, they are the storehouse for the egg cells. A female is born with all the potential egg cells she will ever have, stored in the ovaries in an immature state. Second, the ovaries are endocrine glands, producing the primary female hormones, estrogen and progesterone. These hormones are responsible for the development of female secondary characteristics and for governing the rhythmic monthly cycle. Approximately once a month, in a process guided by these hormones, one of the ovaries matures and releases a single egg cell. This event is called ovulation. The released egg is then gently swept up into the opening of a nearby fallopian tube. The fallopian tubes are two delicate muscular tubes that connect the ovaries to the uterus. They are the pathway where the egg begins its journey, and it is here, in the fallopian tube, that fertilization most often occurs. The destination of this journey is the uterus, a hollow, pear-shaped and incredibly muscular organ located in the center of the pelvis. The uterus has a thick muscular wall and a rich inner lining called the endometrium. This lining is one of the most dynamic tissues in the body. Each month, under the influence of hormones, it thickens and enriches itself with blood vessels, preparing a soft, nourishing and welcoming bed in case a fertilized egg should arrive. If no fertilization occurs, this lining is shed during menstruation, and the cycle begins anew. If a new life does take hold, the uterus becomes its home for the next 9 months, stretching to an incredible size to accommodate the growing being, and its powerful muscular walls will eventually provide the force needed for birth. At the base of the uterus is the cervix, a narrow passageway that opens into the vagina, which connects the internal reproductive organs to the outside of the body. The entire system is a quiet, powerful and cyclical world of patient preparation and potential. The male reproductive system, in contrast to the cyclical and internal nature of the female system, is primarily oriented around the continuous production and external delivery of its genetic messengers. Its architecture is a beautiful testament to its purpose, to create and facilitate a remarkable journey for its gametes. The primary organs of the male system are the two testes, or testicles, which are the male gonads. They are held outside the main body cavity in a sac of skin called the scrotum. This external position is crucial, as the production of healthy sperm requires a temperature that is slightly cooler than the core body temperature. The testes, like the ovaries, have two main jobs. First, they are the factories for sperm production, a process called spermatogenesis. Within each testis are miles of tiny, tightly coiled tubes called the seminiferous tubules. It is here that sperm cells are continuously produced in vast numbers from puberty onward. Second, the testes are endocrine glands producing the primary male hormone, testosterone, which is responsible for the development of male characteristics and for driving the process of sperm production. Once the sperm are produced, they are not yet mature. They move into a long, coiled tube that sits on the back of each testis, called the epididymis. The epididymis is like a finishing school and storage facility for sperm. They may spend several weeks here, maturing and gaining the ability to swim. When it is time for the journey to begin, the mature sperm are propelled from the epididymis into a long muscular tube called the vas deferens. The vas deferens travels up from the scrotum into the pelvic cavity and around the bladder. Along the way, it passes several accessory glands that add fluids to the sperm. The seminal vesicles add a sugary fluid that provides energy for the sperm. The prostate gland adds a milky, alkaline fluid that helps to protect the sperm in the acidic environment of the female reproductive tract. This mixture of sperm and glandular fluids is what we call semen. The vas deferens then joins with the urethra, the tube that runs through the penis and opens to the outside of the body. The urethra in males serves a dual purpose, carrying both urine from the bladder and semen from the reproductive glands to the outside. The entire system is a continuous, streamlined production line and delivery route, all designed to give its tiny genetic messengers the very best chance of completing their incredible journey. Our story of continuity now arrives at its most magical and microscopic moment, the fusion of the two halves of the whole. This is the moment of fertilization, the quiet biochemical event that marks the very beginning of a new, unique individual. After being released during ovulation, the female egg cell begins a slow journey down the fallopian tube. It is viable for only about 12 to 24 hours. During this brief window of opportunity, fertilization can occur. When semen is introduced into the female reproductive tract, millions of sperm begin their own arduous journey, swimming from the vagina through the cervix, up through the uterus, and into the fallopian tubes. It is a journey of immense challenge, and only a tiny fraction of the sperm will ever reach the vicinity of the egg. When the surviving sperm finally reach the egg, they are met with its protective outer layers. The sperm must penetrate these layers to reach the egg's cell membrane. The acrosome, the enzyme-filled cap on the sperm's head, releases its digestive enzymes, which help to break down a path through these outer coatings. Although many sperm may arrive and try to penetrate the egg, only one will succeed. The moment the first sperm makes contact with and fuses with the egg's cell membrane, the egg undergoes an immediate and dramatic change. Its membrane instantly alters its electrical charge, creating a rapid block that prevents any other sperm from entering. This is followed by a slower chemical reaction that hardens the egg's outer layer, creating a permanent, impenetrable barrier. This ensures that the new being will have the correct amount of genetic material, half from one parent and half from the other. At the moment of fusion, the nucleus of the sperm, with its 23 chromosomes, is drawn into the cytoplasm of the egg. The nucleus of the egg then completes its final meiotic division. The two haploid nuclei, one from the egg and one from the sperm, then swell and migrate toward each other. They then fuse, their membranes break down, and their 23 chromosomes from each parent intermingle for the very first time. This creates a single, diploid cell with a full set of 46 chromosomes. This new cell is called a zygote. It contains a brand new, completely unique genetic blueprint, a combination of instructions that has never existed before and will never exist again. This quiet, microscopic miracle is the true beginning of a new human life. And so, our long, gentle journey through the universe of the human body comes to its final, peaceful conclusion. We began in the microscopic city of a single cell, and we have travelled through the silent framework of the bones, the powerful engines of the muscles, the flowing rivers of the blood, and the whispering networks of the nerves. We have witnessed the alchemy of digestion, the vigilance of the immune system, and the delicate dance of hormones. We have peered through the windows of the senses and appreciated the quiet work of cleansing and renewal. And finally, we have stood in awe before the miracle of a new beginning. As we rest here now, in this moment of deep and quiet stillness, let us reflect on the profound truth that these explorations have revealed. The body you inhabit is not a machine. It is a living, breathing ecosystem of unimaginable complexity and wisdom. It is a universe of trillions of lives, all working in a silent, unspoken harmony for the good of the whole. It is a self-healing, self-regulating, and self-sustaining miracle. And with this final chapter, we are invited to see ourselves not just as individuals, but as a part of something far, far greater. The blueprint within your cells, the DNA that guides every process we have discussed tonight, is a thread in an unbroken chain of life. It is an ancient and precious legacy, passed down through countless generations, stretching back through the mists of human history and beyond to the very first stirrings of life on this planet. You, resting here, now, are a momentary and sacred guardian of this legacy. You are a living vessel holding a story that began billions of years ago. Every breath you take, every beat of your heart is a testament to the resilience, the adaptability, and the sheer tenacity of that life force. It is a force that has weathered ice ages and survived famines, a force that has learned and changed and grown and has culminated for this one brief and beautiful moment in you. There is nothing you need to do to be worthy of this inheritance. Your existence itself is the proof. As you drift now completely into the peaceful abyss of sleep, let this thought be your final, comforting anchor. You are a link in an unbroken golden chain. You are a part of a story that is vast, ancient and beautiful beyond all measure, and all that is asked of you is to simply rest and to allow the quiet, miraculous work of life to continue within you. Tonight, we have wandered through the incredible inner cosmos of the human body. We have seen how trillions of parts work in silent, perfect harmony to create the single, wondrous being that is you. From the microscopic dance of the cell to the vast, unbroken chain of life, it is all a story of profound and peaceful intelligence. And now, as you lie here, feel this universe within you. The same quiet wisdom that orchestrates the beating of your heart and the rhythm of your breath is the very same wisdom that is now guiding you into the deep, restorative peace of sleep. There is nothing left to do. There is nothing left to learn. You are held by a process that is ancient and perfect. Give yourself permission to let go of my voice now. Give yourself permission to release the day completely. Allow the gentle tide of sleep to wash over you, for you are home. You're safe. You are a miracle resting, sweet dreams. If this journey brought you comfort, I hope you'll join me again on Midnight Wanderer. There are so many other quiet wonders to explore together. Until then, may your nights be peaceful and your rest be deep.